Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. American Comics. Magic Engine, Opening Homelander Template. Chapter 1. May 2, 2008. Inside a large flat in Queens, New York. Ivan was sitting on the sofa in the living room, helplessly looking at several magic engines on the table. These magical engines are surrounded by transparent mystical glass jars, with azure energy surging inside, delicate and mysterious. In addition, there is a purple magic engine next to it. Its appearance is higher level than the blue one, and the pattern is more mysterious. Pretty, right, but Ivan can't use it now. Magic Engine Merchant Guidelines. Down pointing arrow. 1. The magic engine merchant cannot directly open the magic engine. 2. Every time a blue magic engine is sold, the engine merchant can open a higher level purple magic engine. 3. The magic engine is freely priced by the merchant. As long as the two parties reach an agreement and the other party has it, any existence can be traded. 4. The higher the purchaser's weight in this universe's timeline, the better the reward for the magic engine opened by the engine merchant, and vice versa. 5. Before the weight is restored, turning on the magic engine too much will cause the reward to plummet. I see. Ivan, who understood the system settings, fell on the sofa and sighed. He can come up with countless magical engines like this, but he can't drive any of them until he sells them. Just traveled to this time when mortals suffered from the Marvel Universe. Ivan's heart almost froze. Although he became a 17-year-old high school student and inherited a little or no real estate and stock assets, whoever has seen the movie does not know that New York was invaded by the Avengers Alliance. Not to mention the superhero fight, as if whoever doesn't fight in New York loses face. It's more messy than who left the field. Mortal. Everyone wants to be a superhero. But if there is such a worldview, the reality is. One day, when you go to work kuhaha, you are attracted by the screams outside. You go out and see that superhero is carrying your car that has just been loaned for 2 years and smashing it at the bad guy, and the result has not been hit. What's even worse is that you have to continue to repay this loan. Are you angry? Are you angry? The magic engine can open the reward of all worlds, and any existence may obtain it. Oh, superhero might be me, that's fine. As an engine merchant, don't I have any privileges? Open after a successful transaction. All right. Ivan nodded and looked at the time on the digital watch. Time to go to school. Pick up your bag, put on your shoes, and go out. It wasn't until Ivan came to high school where he remembered it that it dawned on him. Midtown Science High School. I share a school with Peter Parker's Fantastic Spider-Man. From the moment I saw high school, Ivan knew that the first magic engine would have to sell a little Spider-Man. No reason, the main thing is to sell well. Enter high school. People come and go on campus. At the moment is when everyone is about to go to class. Everyone is carrying school bags and textbooks, walking in pairs. Ivan carried the bag cross-body, looking for the skateboarder as he walked. Came to the locker room, put down the school bag, and took out the textbook for the next class. When the cabinet door closed with a bang, Ivan saw men and women kissing not far away. The moment when memories came to my mind. Ivan went straight and turned right outside. Sure enough, there was a roar from the crowd in the distance. Eat it, eat it, eat it. There was a group of people around a common table not far away. They yelled at the bully Eugene, the tall guy nicknamed Lightning, who was bullying a thin boy. He lifted the boy upside down and pressed his face to the food. Wait until Ivan is ready to walk over. The two have already started arguing as in the plot. Eugene was already shouting, "Parker, come and take this picture." No, Parker shook his head gently. I wouldn't take pictures like this, put him down. Eugene frowned, as if his majesty had been violated. Snap a photo, Parker. Put it down, Eugene. I said, take a picture. Peter Parker finally shook his head and said firmly, I said put it down, Eugene. This shout from Parker completely angered Eugene. He dropped the boy in his hand. Angrily, he went up to fight Parker directly. The people outside formed a group. You can't even see what's going on inside. But after a few seconds, Gwen stepped forward and stopped Eugene. During the quarrel between the two, the surrounding crowd began to move. Peter Parker rested on the ground in discomfort. His camera was kicked off. Everyone around is paying attention to Lightning, the bully, but no one pays attention to Peter Parker and the person who was bullied just now. The school bell rings. Everyone began to prepare to leave. Ivan sighed, stepped aside to pick up the camera with Peter Parker's property, then came back to Peter Parker and held out his right hand to him. Everyone looked strangely at Ivan, who was helping the weak. Then he pouted and left. Only Gwen took a deep look at Parker and Ivan. Looking at the hand that only Ivan stretched out to him in front of everyone, Parker took a breath and pulled himself up with grateful eyes in his eyes. "Thanks, buddy." "No thanks." Ivan shrugged. He didn't care. He patted the camera's ashes and handed it to Parker. "I wouldn't have taken those pictures if I didn't." Hearing this sentence, Peter Parker glanced at Ivan and nodded solemnly. It rubbed the still painful part of its body, and looked at Ivan's hand with the same textbooks and materials as his own. "Are you the transfer student coming today?" Ivan thought for a while, and it seemed that this was indeed the case. If there were no other transfer students, it would be me. "Hey, it looks like your grades are pretty good." Parker tidied up his gray clothes, barely picked up a smile, and looked at Ivan's whole body. "It's also quite handsome." Ivan smiled helplessly, pointed at the bell and said, "Let's go, it's class time." In the classroom, Parker buried his head in his hands. Ivan was sitting in the second-to-last position by the window and looked around quite interestingly. To be a 17-year-old male high school student, it's great. The day went by quickly. Fast forward to the afternoon. At the last class at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, Ivan still knew what he had to do today. Take advantage of the teacher bowing his head to teach. Ivan kicked Parker's table leg. "Huh." Parker turned his head and looked over, puzzled. "Come with me after school." Ivan smiled. "Show you a baby." After school, Parker followed Ivan with a veiled look on his face. When he left the classroom, Gwen, who had been observing Parker and Ivan for a day, thought about it, and followed him with his bag. Even New York, Queens has many remote places. Almost no one comes to these places. On the way to the beach, Peter Parker was carrying a bag, holding a skateboard, and asked Ivan while kicking the small stones under his feet. "Ah, Ivan, where are we going? My uncle and my aunt are still waiting for me at home." Ivan turned his head and looked around. After confirming that there was no one in sight, he simply took out a magic engine and threw it to Parker. "Hey." Peter Parker wanted to hide. But as soon as he saw the exquisite appearance of the air magic engine, he became hurriedly caught halfway through. "Look at the exquisite patterns on the magic engine and the mysterious blue energy inside." Peter Parker asked in admiration as he touched the magic engine. "What is this? It's so beautiful." "Magic engine, open it to get any random mysterious reward." Ivan put his hands in his pockets and said indifferently, "I sell this specially, and I can sell it to you now." One listen Ivan can sell to himself." Peter Parker was stagnant, a little helpless and unconfident. He didn't even react to what Ivan explained. I don't have that much money to buy this." Finally, after carefully touching this beautiful magic engine, Parker was ready to return it to Ivan. "Thank you for showing me this artwork, I'll be content to take a picture of it." Facing little Spider-Man wants to give back his magical engine. Ivan shook his head and smiled. "Aren't you going to ask what price it is?" All magic engines are priced by Ivan. He can set the price of a universe as well as a speck of dust. So he had already decided. If you meet someone who wants to sell it, you can sell it at any price, and if you meet someone who should be slaughtered, you will slaughter him. No business is not rape. Not chilling. "Well," Peter Parker pursed his lips and asked after hesitation, "Okay, how much is that?" Ivan grinned and held up 2 fingers. 20,000 meters. Peter Parker was startled and quickly shook his head. He even asked Uncle for the money for the next month's breakfast, 20,000, so he wouldn't be able to get it. Not money. Faced with Peter Parker's flinch, Ivan folded his middle finger and left his index finger. 1 meter yuan. Then extend your middle finger. One more condition. 1 meter yuan. Peter Parker looked at the magic engine in his hand in disbelief. He couldn't believe it. 1 meter yuan could buy it. But after thinking about it, Parker still wanted to give it back to Ivan. "Ivan, this is too expensive, I can't buy your stuff like this." At noon, it was Ivan who stretched out his hand to pull himself up even when no one looked down on him. This is unexpected in the eyes of outsiders. But in Parker's eyes, this is the symbol of the Iron Buddies. Even though the two have only known each other for a day, Parker believes that Ivan has helped him and can be his friend, so he should not take advantage of it. No, even if Ivan didn't help himself, he didn't want to take advantage of it. So there is a condition, Ivan said. Peter Parker was lost in thought, then suddenly remembered Ivan's explanation of the magic engine. Wait, you mean, you can get anything when you open it? Facing Parker's shocked expression, Ivan nodded, definitely. Parker was lost in thought again. Ivan came to the side of the road and sat down. You have something in your heart that you want to do but you dare not do it. Parker was shocked. How did you know that? I didn't say anything about it. Ivan continued. You are weak, you want to help the weak but you don't have the ability. Parker bowed his head. You lack self-confidence, and what you want to do has been hidden in your heart but you dare not do it. But, Ivan continued to scold. Don't you want to change all this? Okay. Peter Parker gritted his teeth and asked firmly, what conditions? I need you to tell me about the extraordinary events you encounter in the future. Seeing Parker's seriousness, Ivan knew he had succeeded. He doesn't say he fully understands the spirit of little Spider-Man, but at least he understands 70% of it. He wouldn't want anything for nothing. Even if he needs it, it is not so easy to sell it. Want money, how long does he need to raise? So you have to find a reason. And this reason is exactly what Ivan needs. Even if he has seen the Extraordinary Spider-Man movie, he will not know exactly when Parker was bitten and what extraordinary events happened. Want to lay out the layout in advance before the cosmic timeline rolls up. Participate in every event on time. He didn't want to sell one less magic engine at a critical moment. That would be a little less development for him. After all, selling engines is for their own good. Okay, Parker nodded, took out a 1-meter bullet from his bag and gave it to Ivan. How to open it? Just unscrew it. Once the deal is done, Parker has the right to open it. After hearing how to use it, Parker stretched out his hand and slowly twisted it on the magic engine. Pissed, lighted up with a burst of blue light. In Peter Parker's eyes, the magic engine glows brightly. This light is not big, nor is it dazzling, but it is very mysterious. Immediately after, a mass of energy-encrusted objects floats above the magical engine in Parker's hands. After seeing the object above, Ivan was almost taken aback. 8 spears. No, not right. Ivan took a closer look again. Although it looks like 8 spears, it looks mechanical, or metal. The appearance is a dark alloy color, which is very textured. Overall, there are 8 legs arranged in 2 rows, each leg has 3 joints, and the end looks extremely sharp. In Peter Parker's eyes, he had no idea what it was. But in Ivan's eyes, he already knew what it was. System explained. 8 Spears Cyberpunk Edition. Ooh. Come and see what this is, the latest biological machine developed by biotechnology. It can fly over the eaves and walls in complex terrain, and the sharp end can even be nailed through a 20 mm thick steel plate. Equipment. Equipment. I really cry. Why did I say the equipment 3 times? Because the most important thing is that it does not require any prosthetic modification, so you can use it freely as long as you wear clothes. Come and buy it soon. Really. After the system explained, this is not the 8 spears in that novel world. It is the 8 spears similar to the mantis knife in the cyberpunk world, but this is more high-tech than the mantis knife. Watch what floats on the magic engine. Peter Parker asked in surprise, what is this? Biotechnology, 8 spears. Ivan explained roughly. In short, it is a high-tech equipment. I hope it will be useful to you. Oh my God. Peter Parker slowly reached out and tried to touch the 8 spears. The moment he touched the 8 spears, it turned into a streamer and flew into Peter Parker's body. At the same time, the magic engine emits a flash of light and disappears. Ivan also got a message. He can turn on a purple magic engine. Anything you get from a purple magic engine is generally better than a blue magic engine. Oh, at this time, Peter Parker has been immersed in the 8 spears of biotechnology. He put down his skateboard and bag and opened his arms. With a thought, the clothes on Peter Parker ripped apart, and 3 pairs of spider legs with fangs and claws appeared. Then he thought again, and the 8 spears were taken back to the body. In this way, Peter Parker had a great time. This is amazing. Peter Parker continued to be shocked. It's like trying new things all of a sudden, like getting a new toy. After half a sound, he suddenly reacted, put away the 8 spears, and came to Ivan's side. The tone was a little hesitant to say, "Ivan, what you gave me is so good, I don't even know what to do." Peter Parker touched him. He has no money and nothing good. After thinking about it, Parker suddenly saw his skateboard, and immediately reached out and picked it up and handed it to Ivan. Parker said sincerely, "This is for you, definitely. I know this is far from enough. You must come to me if you have anything in the future. As long as I can do it, I will definitely help you." Look at Parker's serious expression. Ivan's heart is a long-term smile and thinks he is very good. Peter Parker, Ivan. At this time, a voice came from not far away. Parker and Ivan turned to look. Gwen Stacy came over with a bag. She came to the two of them and frowned when she saw the torn spots on Parker's clothes. Parker. Peter Parker followed her gaze down. He knew right away that Gwen probably thought Ivan had called him over and bullied him. "No, it's not," Parker explained quickly, showing Gwen the details of the tattered clothes. "It was scratched from a skateboard just now." Gwen nodded. "What are you doing here?" Parker scratched his head with his index finger and gave Ivan a sneak peek. Ivan looked at the sea at a 45-degree angle, as if it had nothing to do with him. Parker knew that Bazuspiao couldn't say it, so he could only lie in good faith. "Ivan is a new transfer student, and I want to show him around. Peter Parker is used to taking a lot of pictures all over the place. So this reason makes sense." Gwen nodded. "I still need some research at Osborne Company and need my help. Would you like to drop by?" Parker had 8 spears in his heart, and definitely shook his head. "I have to go back quickly." "No," but Ivan shook his head. "I'm not on my way home." He lives in a high-level apartment between Queens and Harmonton, and doesn't have access to the subway. And he also wanted to go home early and start the purple magic engine. There are also privileged functions of the system that he has yet to understand. Evening. After saying goodbye to Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy, Ivan went straight to the house. "Open the door, take off your shoes, drop your school bag." After putting away the skateboard Peter Parker gave him, Ivan closed the curtains, went to his bedroom and closed the door. He waved his hand. A purple magic engine fell out of thin air onto the bed. The secret pattern whose surface is more complex and exquisite than the blue engine is running. The mysterious purple energy that flows inside seems to contain an infinite universe. Ivan reaches for the magic engine, which is about 30 centimeters high and 15 centimeters in diameter. But before opening, he still asked first, "What are my system privileges?" Turn back and transition. After confirming the actual location, merge the two space-times. You can travel to the designated place to stay, but the merged space-time must be released, and then it will definitely return to the original place. What is confirming the actual location? Whether it is a visual observation or a mental image, as long as the target location exists during the transition, you can transition to the actual location. Worth. This privilege ability is too powerful. Wouldn't it be possible to sell magic engines after chasing people? Just imagine. Before the critical moment, Ivan jumped back to him to sell the magic engine, "You buy or not?" And as long as this ability is used properly, it can also evade large area attacks and so on. Even if a nuclear explosion comes, he can jump to the correct location in his memory first. Then come back when the danger is gone. This is awesome. Try it now. Ivan stood up, images of the living room in his apartment popping up in his mind. Next moment, he disappeared silently in place, leaving only a transparent crease in space and time. At the same time, he himself came to the living room. Look at the familiar scene around you. Ivan stepped forward to pick up the unfinished drink in the living room, and then with a thought, he released the folded space-time. Sure enough, the next moment, he went back to the bedroom again, still holding the drink he had just held. Very good. Ivan drank the drink in his hand. With this privilege, Ivan is much more at ease when doing things. At least you don't have to worry that you won't be able to run away from danger before you are full of wings. In this world, to develop quietly, not to expand. Immediately after, Ivan picked up the purple magic engine again. This time he was the same as before. Simple and straightforward, a surprise attack directly on the rewards in the magic engine. unscrewed the purple magic engine directly. Scoff. Immediately, it was accompanied by a bright purple light. A card slowly emerged from the magic engine. This light is even more dazzling and beautiful than the blue light just now, and I hope the rewards in it will be much better. Ivan reaches for the card. The purple magic engine also turned into a flash and disappeared. After reading the contents of the card, Ivan's expression was stunned at first, and then he showed a helpless smile. Homelander template. An explanation of the system follows. Templates. As a magic engine merchant, you can load countless templates, but all templates need to be gradually adapted, and some side effects are automatically adjusted. Homelander template. After you have this template, you will gradually have all the abilities of Homelander, such as super strength, super speed, super defense, super hearing, flight, thermal vision, perspective, etc. At the same time, you can do high-intensity exercise and improve social popularity. Significantly increases ability strength. Adaptive side effects. When facing all the different women, you will love the royal sister and the queen more. Ivan. Ivan thought about his taste preferences. Scarlet Witch, Gila, Yan, Hexie, Keisha, Liangbing, Estes, White Boss, Pirate Queen, Captain Kuiba, etc. Oh, doesn't this mean that there are no side effects? As long as my tastes are the same as the side effects are negated. Holds the Homelander template card. Ivan crushed lightly and vigorously. Gotcha. As the card shattered, countless fragments flashed into his body with starlight. Immediately, a heat flow from the jeans to the spine spread to the whole body. Ivan looked up, enjoying the change in power. Even just accepting templates. The feeling of a new look coming from within the body is still unforgettable. After half a sound, woo, with a deep breath, Ivan walked out of the bedroom and came to the floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room to look into the distance. Rely solely on vision. He could already see the Stark and Osborn buildings on Manhattan Island from the tall buildings in Queens. And even the employees in the glass of the two buildings can see clearly. If he wants to see, he can even use the see-through ability to see the employee's chest swaying as he walks. Awesome, Ivan sighed. The primal urge to power up even made Ivan want to punch the glass in front of him to test its hardness. This is the primal impulse that comes with power. Many superheroes are living examples if not well controlled. Dr. Lizard was originally one of the proofs. He went from wanting to restore his arm to the final arrogance, trying to change the entire human gene, and finally woke up when his power completely disappeared. People will become. It's very real. Also normal. Tit. Suddenly, a software pop-up notification popped up on Ivan's phone. When I took out my phone, it turned out to be a message being pushed by several apps at the same time. Twitter. Today's Stark Weapons Department announced that the military's major high-tech weapons orders in 2008 were negotiated by Stark Industries. Facebook. Osborn Group said that it is regrettable that it was not selected for this military purchase order, but the latest future technology weapons are finding breakthroughs. BBC. According to the news of a private one-on-one interview with our reporter late last night, Tony Stark himself will travel to Afghanistan to participate in this transaction and weapons display. Oh, see this Ivan? No. Iron Man is about to be born. At the same time, he can also use the merchant's privileges to extort. No, to sell a little magic engine. He had a deep impression of where Tony Stark was imprisoned in Afghanistan at the time. But before that, Ivan has to exercise and improve himself. Remember what a blind monk in Runeterra said. Control yourself, control your enemies. Early the next morning, Ivan still went to high school as usual. But after a night of training, he has mastered the explosive strength growth brought to him by the template last night. Lightly tested, Ivan's strength can currently lift a normal car with both hands. The eyes glowed red and gave off high temperature, but there was no heat sight. Perspective can see through paper or thin wood. Flight can only barely get off the ground and become a free-range chicken. The defense can ignore the cutting, sliding and stabbing of the knife. Hearing, vision, and speed don't need to be cited as examples. These are the fastest reactions that appear on the body, and he has mastered them from the beginning. Ivan is still quite satisfied with the current improvements. Because Homelander's son in the black-robed picket team is so old that he can't fly, the heat sight is still forced out, and he only has basic defense and physique. And Ivan just had a simple night. Not even a day. So relative to this improvement, it is very fast. At the entrance of Midtown Science High School, a figure leaned against the door and looked back and forth at the passing crowd, as if he was waiting for someone. After a while, I saw Ivan arrive. He immediately trotted over and patted Ivan on the shoulder. "Hi, good morning, how are you today?" When Ivan saw it, it turned out to be Spider-Man. "Not bad, how were you last night?" "It's really good." Peter Parker was a little excited when he mentioned this. When he saw Ivan's backpack, he took it over to help him carry it and said, "The 8 spears are so handsome. I was flying over the walls in the abandoned dock last night. Swish, it's so handsome." Speaking of which, Parker rubbed his stomach and regretted, "The longer I use it and the harder I use it, the more it seems to absorb my nutritional ability and I will be hungry sooner. But what kind of technology is this? It's so awesome. At least a few hundred years ahead of the present. My God, you don't know." Listening to Peter Parker excited like a child, dancing and dancing, chattering about his discoveries, Ivan shook his head and smiled helplessly, interrupting his spellcasting. "Didn't you do anything with it?" "You got it. And then, what did you do?" Speaking of this, Peter Parker suddenly became miserable. "I used it well and probably figured it out." Is this gone? The two went to the storage room, put the bag in the cabinet, and took out the textbook. On the way to class, Ivan said with an expression of hating iron, "Do what you want to do in your heart, you already have this kind of equipment, are you afraid that someone will bully you?" But Parker hesitation for a moment, looked around before whispering, "It must not be used in front of others, the police will come to me." "You don't wear a mask hood." Ivan pointed to a masquerade poster. "You make a big one and put your whole head on, and then change your clothes. Who knows that the equipment is yours?" When Peter Parker saw it, he suddenly realized, yes. Talking and talking, the two came to the classroom to do a good job. Parker took out paper and pen and began to draw. Ivan did a good job by the window, thinking about the plan to increase social popularity and improve ability later. Gwen looked back at both Ivan and Parker. She always felt that the two must have a big secret. Ivan, a transfer student, has a bigger secret. But she just didn't know. After school, Peter Parker packed up his school bag and came to Ivan with great interest. "I know it's nice to have an abandoned shipyard, let's go check it out." Ivan looked at Parker, who was looking forward to going. He knew that Peter Parker wanted to see the roll and display of the 8 spears and wanted to share it with himself. But he still shook his head. "Sorry Parker, I have something to do these days, I have to go back first." Okay. Parker regretted it, watching Parker go home. Ivan also apologized inwardly. If he has been entangled with Peter Parker, he is also afraid that the timeline will be disrupted because Parker does other things. After counting the time, he was about to get the box left by his parents. Probably tonight. And its own Homelander ability has not been developed yet. There's still a lot of exercise to do on your own. More like Spider-Man later, he also needs to prepare something, first become a superhero to first increase social popularity and indirectly improve himself. He didn't want to miss a chance to improve himself. And seriously, all come to the world of Marvel. Is there really no one who doesn't want to feel like a superhero? Do you really want to experience the feeling of much attention and expectation? When there was no Homelander template, Ivan just thinks he has a chance to experience it, and if he doesn't, forget it. But now there is a chance. So sorry, Ivan admits he's real. He just wanted to experience it. When the time comes to put on a vest to be a superhero, then there is really a problem. The big deal is to run and stop playing. After returning home, Ivan continues to practice Homelander ability. And wait for the news that Tony Stark has been kidnapped. That's it. The day passed quickly. In a blink of an eye, the third day came. In a high-level apartment in Queens, Ivan took his feet off the ground and flew around in the large flat living room with the curtains drawn. Figures fly by. The wind whistled. Fortunately, he had already collected the light things in the living room in advance. Otherwise, this sudden flight will definitely mess up the living room. Ivan suddenly stopped flight's figure and hovered in the air. Looking at the living room with only daylighting, he was a little dissatisfied. According to the feeling just now, His maximum flight speed should have reached nearly 400 kilometers per hour, which can also be counted as 400 yards. This speed is equivalent to more than 100 meters per second. Equal to one-third the speed of sound flight. Yes, 400 yards is only one-third the speed of sound. But he was far less fast in the living room just now. It's just how he feels about his speed. You want to experience your full power and speed. Then you have to go outside and fly. But if you go out to fly, you have to hide your identity before going out. Next to his apartment are the two tech giants, the Stark Group and the Osborn Group. So if you're not ready to fly rashly, he'll be known by Norman Osborn and Tony Stark right away. Then trouble will follow. So if you want to play outside, you have to hide your identity like Spider-Man first. Jingle bell. At this moment, the phone rang. Ivan picked it up and saw that it was Peter Parker calling. After being connected, Peter Parker's tone was low. Ivan, I'm a little depressed and don't know what to do. What's wrong? Ivan asked. Uncle gave me the briefcase that my parents left before I left. Peter Parker said confusedly. There are so many things in it, I don't know what I should do now. What should I do? Between calls, Peter Parker seems to have used Ivan as a confidant, telling news about his parents and how he felt about them when he was a child. After he finished speaking, Peter Parker suddenly came to his senses. I'm sorry to make you listen to all my rubbish. It's fine. Ivan shook his head. Then he continued. Still that sentence, do what you want to do in your heart. Before you know about your parents, all your understanding is based on the information you know, but what if there is something you don't know? Everyone will have a difficult time, and you have to know the whole picture before you can draw a conclusion. After Ivan finished speaking, Peter Parker was silent for a while before speaking very seriously. I see, thank you, Ivan. You are welcome. After hanging up the phone, Ivan turned the phone in his hand. Looks like the Spider-Man story is about to begin. In a few days, Parker will first contact Dr. Connor's lizard, then go to the Osborn Group, sneak into the laboratory and be bitten by his father's specially trained spider, and become Spider-Man. If it weren't for those experimental spiders that had Peter Parker's father carved into them. That's Richard Parker's DNA. Otherwise, Ivan will take the initiative to let the spider bite and gain the ability of Spider-Man. Ability, not too much. But he is not a member of the Parker family, nor is he a child of Richard Parker. So being bitten is useless. It will not strengthen the gene, but will only be highly toxic. At night, Ivan was lying on the couch watching the news. However, the headlines of several news suddenly popped up collectively on the mobile phone. Twitter, Tony Stark was arrested. Who are these terrorists? Facebook, She Stark Group is in panic, and shareholders are very worried. Obadiah Stani, the second largest shareholder, said that he can guarantee that Tony She Stark will not be in danger for the time being. The military said that it will do whatever it takes to fight terrorists and find Tony Stark himself. See here. A smile appeared at the corner of Ivan's mouth. The opportunity has come, but not now. He deeply knows that the icing on the cake is really not as good as giving help in the snow. And to send charcoal in the snow, it is necessary to find the coldest time to send it. If he can, he definitely wants to get on with all the superhero and sell the magic engine hard. Then win by quantity, day after day, year after year, from the higher level purple magic engine to strengthen its own strength. This is the way of farming. Thought here, Ivan got up and resumed exercising. He set the time for Tony Stark to be tomorrow morning. Now in the past, the big shit may still be in a coma. The next day, when dawn came, Ivan just came out of the bathroom after taking a shower. As he walked, he took a long bath towel to dry his body. If there is a girl who can see Ivan's figure at the moment, then she will probably be crazy. Since getting Homelander's template, just 2 or 3 days of change. Ivan's figure has shifted towards the perfect posture of biological nature. At the moment, he is very similar to DC's perfect body. The muscular outline of the whole body emerges like an ancient Greek sculpture, and it also resembles the lifelike, thick and realistic feeling of the statue in the red period of the distant hairy bear country. Dry off, get dressed, and pick up your phone. Ivan looked at the time. He wanted to take time off to exercise, only to find out that the school is off today. Someone was texting him on the phone. Ivan opened it up. It turned out to be from Peter Parker. Peter Parker, yesterday at 23:56 and today at 5:30. Ivan, I thought about it all night, maybe I should face this matter bravely. I must investigate the matter of my parents. When I saw the news, I left the next day. Looking at it this way, Peter Parker may have gone to the Osborne building. Ivan put away his phone and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Looking at New York City where the morning light is just beginning to fall, then go back to continue exercising. Wait till afternoon. Almost. Ivan nodded, went back to the bedroom, took out the mask that had been prepared and put it on, and used the system privilege. Return jump. The next moment, his figure disappeared, leaving only a small illusory crease in the air. At the same time, inside a terrorist camp in a desert camp in Afghanistan. In a dim stone cell, Tony Stark was leaning against the wall in a daze. He was a playboy, a Forbes billionaire, and a philanthropist. Well, he admitted that philanthropists were tax avoiders, but that was also charity. But what is he like now? Dirty all over and bombed. A hole was opened in the chest, and there was a pile of metal shrapnel in it. If it wasn't for a man named Dr. Inson who made an electromagnet for himself to absorb the shrapnel, he might have been game over with shrapnel in his heart last night. As a result, not only no treatment is not said. Ying Sen, who was detained together, said that he would tear up the ticket if he did not build weapons for the terrorists outside. Do you think Tony Stark, can be bullied? Is this not the end of the calf? At the moment, he hasn't been through hardships, he's lived a pampered life, and the talented Tony Stark has no vision and nothing to do. Suddenly, the stone cell became dark. With a pop, and a click, a figure suddenly appeared under Tony's eyes, and then he snapped off the surveillance camera and stunned Ying Sen next to him. Tony's eyes lit up. Not only did he play flowers, but his IQ was definitely high. Seeing the masked Ivan appear out of thin air, he quickly seized the opportunity to ask, "Sir, can you take me away? I can pay you a satisfactory amount of rice gold." "Sorry." The masked Ivan shook his head slowly. "I can only bring the dead back. Do I need to kill you first and then bring the body back to the Stark building?" Forget it. Tony twitched the corners of his mouth after hearing this, and quickly refused. But just rely on Ivan's ability to appear out of thin air. Tony decided he must have a way to save himself. It is the only life-saving straw that can be grasped. Tony said quickly, "Sir, I believe you must have a reason for coming here, and you must have a way. As for remuneration," Tony didn't mention it, because now it's not what he wants to pay, but what the other party wants and whether he can give it. Seeing Tony so sensible, Ivan nodded, came to the table next to him and raised his hand. Immediately, 3 beautiful blue magic engines sit on this tattered table. Long story short, you only have 3 minutes, Ivan said. The surveillance in which Tony is being held is manned 24 hours a day. If something is wrong, someone with a gun will come to check immediately. Tony obviously knew that, and without saying a word, he just nodded seriously. Ivan pointed to the first magic engine and continued, "This sells you 10 million meters of gold." 10 million meters of gold is a lot for Tony, but it's not too much. Then Ivan points to the second one. "This is the third shareholder of Stark Industries that sells your shares forever. If someone's shareholding increases, you must recycle it and fill it in. And finally the third. This one sells you the source code of JARVIS intelligence. 3 selling prices, one is more expensive than one, and one is more cherished." It's not that Ivan has to follow an increasingly expensive proportion in the future. It's just that he might need these temporarily. And let Tony know the importance of these magical engines. Not your ordinary glass jar. In this way, buyers in the future will rush to the magical engine in his hand and treat it like a guest, instead of thinking that Ivan is actively trying to sell them. Expensive in the front, cheap in the back. But it is easy to produce ambiguity if it is cheap in the front and expensive in the back. So this is the way Ivan calculated. No business, no rape, that's normal. Tony looked at the 3 exquisite magical engines on the table and couldn't help but ask, what's the difference between them? It's the same. ... Okay. Tony looked at the mask on Ivan's face. May I ask, what are they for? You'd better decide quickly, Ivan reminded first. Then he continued. magic engine, unscrew it to get any reward at random. Any rewards? Tony asked emphatically. That's right, Ivan said. Here a confirmed reply. Tony took a deep breath, a look of disbelief on his face. But because of the magic of Ivan's sudden appearance and the visual mystery brought by the magic engine, he decided to gamble. Tony Stark looked at Ivan with the most serious look ever. Last question, how do I pay? Ivan hugged his arms and said lightly, as long as you promise. No problem. Tony Stark replied immediately, I promise. The next moment, the silent contract was established. Whether it was stocks or MI they were quietly transferred to Ivan's name, and it was difficult to check. Unless Stark calls a shareholder meeting and Ivan shows up. At the same time, the source code technology of JARVIS has directly become the knowledge in Ivan's brain. And Tony took a deep breath and came to the magic engine. Pat, pat, pat. Suddenly, there was the sound of running outside the door. Hear the sound of running from these terrorists. Tony also knew that time was really running out. His face changed, and he immediately took the magic engine and screwed it up. The first magic engine was unscrewed. A ball of light flew directly into Tony Stark's brain. Ivan also knew what he was driving at. It is the initial number of steel armor, which is the design drawing of Mark No. 1 armor. Tony looked surprised, no matter how the magic engine that had been turned on in his hand disappeared. Then immediately unscrew the second one, accompanied by bright blue light. Another ball of light flew into Tony's body. When Ivan saw the system introduction, it turned out to be a document. She Stark Group Comprehensive Summary Report. The above actually records in detail the detailed information of each employee of the Stark Group, the group's finances, decision-making, operations, etc. All the detailed information. It can be said that nothing is too small. After reading it, it is equivalent to watching the development process of the History Stark Group from start to finish. Sure enough, the magic engine can open anything. Although this information is good, it doesn't matter to the current Tony. Life is about to die, let's see if the data is alive. Pat, 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 with the sound of footsteps not far away getting closer. Immediately after, Tony unscrewed the last magic engine. With a blue light full of Tony's hope. This time, it was actually a pair of glasses. Tony looked at Ivan suspiciously, with a look of help on his face. The previous knowledge and materials have understandings and titles, so Tony knows. But this glasses, only Ivan can get the system introduction. Ivan briefly introduced. Elementary level knowledge glasses. After wearing it, the IQ increases by 10%, the learning speed is increased by 10%, the rationality is increased by 10%, and the emotion is reduced by 10%. Note: the wise do not fall in love. Really, hearing the effect of the glasses, Tony immediately picked them up and put them on, ignoring the notes on the back. But what about the style of these glasses? Certainly not as good looking as Tony's smart glasses after the explosion of technology. Well, Ivan watched Tony put it on. The tasteful of science students came. Watching Tony's 3 magic engines have been activated, his own transaction contract has been reached, and a few big men will soon arrive at the door. While Ivan could have knocked them down casually, he wasn't here to do it. So Ivan looked at Tony, who was still emotional. He simply said, "See you next time." The next moment, the folded space-time was sent back. Ivan instantly disappeared in place. Wait, Tony reacted suddenly, and before the words were finished, the Ivan disappeared. Tony took a deep breath and looked in the direction Ivan disappeared. Thanks. With this deal, Tony felt like he had made a profit. The design of the Mark I cannot be described by Mikan. She Stark Group reports that it is also worth a lot of money when he goes out. Not to mention the magical glasses of knowledge, in Tony's eyes, it's a treasure of treasures, more precious than anything he's ever owned. But he certainly didn't know. Ivan earns more than him. Ahem, so strictly speaking, both parties feel that they have earned it. Boom. At this time, there was a knocking sound from outside the iron gate. The terrorists outside the door opened the iron door with a key, and then came in with guns. After the leader with the gray cloth on his head came in, he first looked at the surveillance camera and then looked around. It didn't wait for him to say anything. Tony pushed the knowledge glasses on the bridge of his nose and said, "Your surveillance has made me feel like my privacy has been violated. The leader took a deep look at Tony. He came straight to Tony and said in a deep tone, "You'd better not think about any tricks, and make weapons for us with peace of mind, that's your best way out." After speaking, he took the terrorists and left. But before leaving, he instructed his subordinates, change the position of the camera and leave a corner for the distinguished playboy, Mr. Tony Stark, to glue. After seeing the camera adjusted, everyone left. Tony's eyes moved slightly, celebrating the success of his first plan. "Wait for my Mark 1, fools. Back to New York from Afghanistan. Ivan only took the blink of an eye. Even to be precise, it is an untimed moment. After returning to the bedroom of the high-level apartment, Ivan took off the mask from his face and threw it on the bed. The first thing he did next was to confirm how the transaction contract was implemented. This kind of breaking common sense, a bit like a rule, is very powerful. As long as both parties print it and it is owned by the other party, it will definitely be implemented. Ivan enters the system to check. Really, there are 3 messages in the system. On a Swiss bank bearer card, there is 1 million meters of gold that he can use at any time. In an anonymous identity security trust company, he indirectly holds the 3rd largest share of stock in the Stark Group. As for the source code of JARVIS, it has long since become knowledge in his mind. He didn't want these things for nothing. Both money and technology, he is ready to prepare for the later move. He now lives too close to the Avengers Alliance. Even if his strength is enough later, he is not afraid, but the house is afraid, and if the house is gone, it will be rebuilt. Anyway, they were all earned by the way for the purple magic engine. It doesn't matter if you make yourself better and happy. Went to Afghanistan. In a good mood, Ivan went into the bathroom to take a shower. But when it comes out, Ivan squeezed his palm and clenched his fist. He felt a little bit of a change in himself. The high-intensity exercise in the past few days has made him clearly feel that his body seems to be getting stronger. Why is that? Ivan was puzzled, so he tried using the heat side while facing the water in the bathtub. Immediately, Ivan, who used to only get hot eyes, at this time, his eyes suddenly became anxious, and 2 high-temperature red rays of light shot out. Sigh. Immediately, the water in the bath was madly evaporated. Just a second or two, and soon a bathroom is full of water vapor. Hot sight, he can use it. But here's why. Ivan was puzzled, and went to the system to see the ability introduction. Performing high-intensity exercise and increasing social popularity can significantly increase ability strength. High-intensity workouts, no workouts at all when I went to Tony. Ivan looks to increase popularity. Could it be that the effect of increasing popularity among superhero is higher quality than the general population? Apart from this, there seems to be no other explanation. Ivan nodded as he thought. If that's the case, then boosting popularity will take 2 actions. 1. To be a superhero in the eyes of the general population of the whole society, and to measure quality by quantity. 2. To be the superhero in the hearts of superhero people, and measure the quantity by quality. Night. In a bedroom with no lights on. Ivan's body reflected a charming purple light. This is the light emitted by the purple magic engine, and the source of the light is the mysterious magic energy in the engine. Time to turn on these 3 purple magic engines. For the sake of his own safety and strength, the magical engine Ivan obtained from selling Tony would definitely not be delayed until the next day to open it. No more nonsense. Ivan reached for one of the 3 purple magic engines and twisted it open. Accompanied by bright purple light jets out. After a while, when the purple light dissipated, a badge marked with a large S letter was suspended above the engine. Seeing this, Ivan was sure in his heart. It's about Superman's reward. Who else wears the big S letter badge besides Superman? Next, Ivan looks at the system introduction. Krypton Superman Armory. After using this badge, you will randomly get any piece of equipment in the Superman's equipment library as a reward. Hemp, make money. In Superman's arsenal, which one is not of great help to combat power? Ivan's random pick is a big help for him now. After recovering, Ivan put the badge into the system first, and dealt with it together after the remaining 2 purple magic engines were driven. Immediately after, has the heat of the first reward. Without a word, Ivan turned on the second magic engine. Another burst of purple light filled the air. After the engine was turned on this time, no items appeared. Instead, a skill flew directly into Ivan's body and learned directly. This time without the introduction of the system. He knew what he had learned just by feeling and using his physical qualities. Navy 6. That is, the 6 physical moves in one piece that exceed the limits of the human body. They are pointing gun, iron block, shaving, moon steps, lancing feet, paper painting. These abilities really wouldn't work if he was still an ordinary person. But at the moment, his physical fitness is extremely high. Although there are several abilities that duplicate the abilities of the Homelander template, the abilities of the finger spear and lamb food are very useful to him. The function of the finger gun is to apply the force of the whole body to the fingers, and then attack at an ultra-fast speed, penetrating the target like a bullet. And Lanjiao allows Ivan to have another ranged attack ability. Allows him to deliver a sharp gas slash between his kicks. Not to mention that these abilities can be developed later. Ivan closed his eyes and felt them before opening them. With my physical characteristics, I can create higher level physical arts in the future. Ivan squeezed his fingers. First, hold back the feeling that you want to try the new ability right away. Then continue to open the last purple magic engine. Zigwang didn't say anything. Ivan has to get used to it. But what he opened this time finally allowed him to see the real thing. The purple light dissipated, and 3 thumb-file-sized mung beans floated above the engine. Shondo. Ivan reached for them. He didn't need to read the system introduction to know. Shondo, it contains a very strong power of recovery in its body. As long as the person is not dead, it can recover physical strength and energy in the shortest time during extreme fatigue, and readjust the body to the best state. Good stuff. Ivan put the 3 fairy beans into the system space. It's safest to put things here. And the role of fairy beans needless to say. When the creature is injured, he does not guarantee that he will not be in danger of being endangered in the future. Then it's right to save this fairy bean. Who thinks there are too many things to save lives? After putting away the fairy beans, the purple light in Ivan's bedroom also disappeared. Only a little bit of starlight when the moonlight shines fills the bed. But it's not over yet. Ivan flipped his palm, and a badge with the letter S appeared on his hand again. The Kryptonian Superman Arsenal. Take a deep look at the most precious reward among the 3 purple magic engines. Ivan took a deep breath and said silently in his heart. Use. Immediately, the badge floated gently in Ivan's palm, and disappeared as one with time and space. It was as if the badge ran away on its own. But the next moment, after the space-time vibrates like water waves, a black corner appeared in Ivan's eyes. Battle suit. The moment the corner of the shirt appeared, Ivan could see that it was a battle suit. Superman battle suit. There are many Superman battle suits. Basically every Krypton Superman will have his own battle suit, and there will be many sets. Each battle suit serves a different purpose. Some are for exercise, some are for combat, some are for daily use, and some are for recovery. In short, there are many kinds, corresponding to different environments. So what is this battle suit? Then, as the water ripples in time and space become more and more, the exposed area of the battle suit is also getting bigger and bigger. Before it could fully appear, Ivan already knew what a battle suit it was. Black super battle suit. Yes, not red, not blue, but black. And the effect of the black battle suit, Ivan still remembers clearly. But he didn't care to guess. Wait until the black battle suit is fully revealed. Ivan immediately looked at the system introduction. Black super battle suit. It can actively absorb the radiant energy from the sun, allowing the wearer to quickly recover physical energy, and improve strength, speed, and defense. It can also block all reconnaissance, and freely adjust the battle suit file size and style. Awesome. After reading the introduction, Ivan looked up at the black battle suit in front of him. Under the reflection of luminous light, its black surface is as deep and dazzling as obsidian. The parts covered by the whole body make the bulging muscle lines full of texture. Especially the black cloak behind him. Under the starlight at night, it is as mighty as a dragon spreading its wings, and it is as graceful as the goddess of the night when she opens her arms and dances quietly. Ivan nodded in satisfaction. He stretched out his hand, touched the battle suit lightly, and said in his heart, "Wear it." Immediately, the black super battle suit rushed to him like a silk ribbon of water, and finished wearing it in the blink of an eye. and quickly fit Ivan's body to adjust the most suitable file size. Recall the introduction to battle suits. Ivan thought of a mask in his head. The next moment, the style of the battle suit automatically adjusted to a mask similar to that between Batman and Iron Man, and put it on his face. So far, all preparations have been completed. The camera zooms to the high-level apartment where Ivan is located. A black figure shot straight into the sky in an instant. Ivan keeps flying, until he flew to an altitude of 10,000 meters, and looked at the chain of light composed of tens of millions of lights under his feet. Ivan stood in the air, and the cloak behind him floated like water. At the moment, he really wanted to shout out, "Cool." But for the sake of character design, forget it. Then, above the clouds, Ivan began to gradually try all his abilities. Pirate 6, hot sight, high-speed flight, ... It was not until the sun rose that Ivan stopped exercising. Standing at an altitude of 10,000 meters, Ivan opened his arms and closed his eyes slightly. The sun began to rise, and the sun fell on him little by little. At the same time, the physical strength consumed last night is also recovering rapidly, and vaguely, he can feel that the strength and physique are getting stronger. Although the growth is very small, there will definitely be an improvement under the accumulation. Jingle bell. At this time, Ivan sensed that the phone in his system space was vibrating. "Take it out and see, Parker is calling." After connecting, Peter Parker said in surprise and confusion, "Ivan, my body is a little weird, my strength has grown, and my hearing and vision have changed." Although Ivan knew, he still asked, "How did it become like this?" I infiltrated the Osborn Building laboratory yesterday." Parker only hesitation for a moment, but still explained to Ivan, "There are a lot of experimental spiders in the laboratory. I was bitten and it became like this. On the subway home yesterday, I felt very hot. There were still people who wanted to bully me, but I suddenly reacted very quickly, with a lot of strength and sticky hands, and I knocked them down right away." Ivan smiled and joked, "Congratulations, you have mutated, you are going to become a Spider-Man." "Oh no, please don't scare me." Parker quickly shook his head on the other end of the phone. "I can't tell for a while, let's meet at school." "See you at school." Hang up the phone. Ivan dodged and used the system to change clothes while in the air. Then go home, grab your school bag, and simply go to school. Walking on the road with both feet on the ground, Ivan looked at the diverse crowd around him with a smile on his lips. He prefers this kind of life to owning his own life rather than a person who thinks highly of himself, has a high status, and needs to be polite every day. If it's okay, go out to punish evil and promote good. When I get home, I play games or engage in activities. If you find another woman to accompany you later. Gee, happy life. After coming to school, before he even got in the door, Peter Parker trotted over and patted his shoulder. Then I took off the bag on Ivan's body to help carry it. Parker held a diagonal bag in his left hand, and a diagonal bag in his right hand, and whispered as he walked on the road. "I can't believe it, if it wasn't for my body changes, I would have wanted to go to the doctor." Said as if you dared to go. Ivan joked as hell. But it's true. In the capitalist society of the United States, if Peter Parker went to the hospital at this time to tell all about his situation, not to mention whether Osborn's armed forces will come to him immediately. As long as this story gets out, Peter Parker will never have a good time in his life. For the sake of money, this society will do anything. The two went to the storage room and put their backpacks away. Parker also showed a hand to Ivan during the period. He quietly turned over the hand that was carrying the bag. It was obvious that his hand didn't grab the backpack, it was just sticking together, but the bag couldn't fall off. All the way to gym class. The two came to sit on the stairs with no one around. Ivan looked at his hand. "Don't you think that all the abilities you have displayed so far are very similar to the spider that bit you?" "You mean, I have the ability of spiders?" Peter Parker was startled, took out his mobile phone and asked, "What abilities do spiders have?" Ivan doesn't need to answer this question, because Parker has found out. Sensing, agility, neural response, spinning. Peter Parker frowned and thought about it. Except for the ability to spin silk to change the physiological structure, everything else is exactly the same. "That's right." Ivan nodded. "Then what should I do?" Peter Parker was a little worried. I evolve every day, what if I evolve wrong later? Maybe you should go to the research director of that laboratory. Hearing Ivan's proposal, Peter Parker turned his head slowly and looked at Gwen Stacy, who was walking towards him. She was the intern assistant to the head of that lab. That is, Dr. Connor's intern. We only met yesterday when he sneaked in. I see. Peter Parker looked at Gwen and nodded. Suddenly, Parker stretched out his hand. With a bang, he took a flying football. Ivan sensed the ball long ago, but the ball wasn't coming at him, and Parker had the ability to pick it up, so he didn't intercept it. The two turned their heads slowly. Eugene looked at Parker in surprise, not expecting him to catch the ball. Eugene provocatively said, "Kick the ball over, Parker. Don't be with your eldest brother. Will there be gatherings between trash?" It turned out that Parker helped Ivan with the school bag every day after being seen and spread. When combined with the transfer, he pulled Parker. So everyone in the school regarded Ivan as Parker's thigh and big brother. Some bullies are dissatisfied with this. What is it that you suddenly cover the person I bully? Have you considered how uncomfortable it is for me to be bullied by no one? So, this is a trial. If Ivan's strength and courage are not enough, they will also list Ivan as a bully. Then he intensified his efforts to trouble the two of them. At the moment, Parker was annoying. He didn't want to talk to these people, so he was going to just throw the ball aside and walk away. Gwen also tried to stop the two sides. But she was just about to step forward. "Give me the ball." Ivan suddenly reached out and asked Parker for a football. Parker froze for a moment, then turned to look at Ivan. Although he was puzzled, he still trusted Ivan with the ball. Ivan cushioned the ball, didn't even trace the aim. While throwing the ball in the air, he said with an unpretentious whip leg at the same time. "When someone provokes you, it is also a challenge to your dignity. If you back down this time, they will think you are weak and then deal with you intensified." Boom! With the football kicked out by Ivan. The entire black and white football shook, and everyone could even see the dust falling in a circular shape in the air. The football was also flattened into an oval shape, and then flew over in an instant. During the flight of the ball, Ivan looked back and said to Parker, "Shoo-shoo. When you have ability, you are bound to the changes brought by ability. You can't stay the same, but should change with ability changes. The most important thing is what your original intention was before you had ability. You're going to find it. Confirm it. Hold on to it." Bang! Then, the football slammed into Eugene's stomach as if it had been fitted with a tracker. Eugene flew out directly, although not much fly, but at least 1 or 2 meters. After he fell heavily to the ground, clutching his stomach in pain, everyone came to his side to take a look. Definitely, with Ivan's current physical quality, he can play football directly. But that's not needed now. His goal was to teach Eugene in front of Parker and teach him what to do in such a situation. At the same time, he also returned Eugene's words about his own waist. He is not a saint, nor is he careful. It's okay if the trouble outweighs the gain. But why not do this handy lesson? At the moment, in the eyes of Eugene's younger brothers, Ivan is a very powerful person. So when they looked away from Ivan, already with a deep sense of awe. This kind of change from the inside out, Peter Parker is watching carefully. At the same time, his heart was changing drastically. His cognition, his approach, his understanding are all changing with Ivan's footsteps. Gwen Stacy next to at the moment is covering her mouth in shock. She didn't expect to study so well. Ivan. How can I teach others this way? In her mind, good students basically go to tell their teachers and complain about their dissatisfaction. But this kind of thing is too much in the school. If the study is good, or the family is very good, students and teachers will take care of them. But many people's reports are not very useful. Besides, teachers like Eugene don't want to take care of them. Unless they are expelled, they will change back in a few days. Jingle bell. At the moment, the school bell rang. This was supposed to be the last exercise class before school. So Ivan looked at Eugene, who was still lying on the ground, and walked away from Gwen without looking back. Hey! Peter Parker suddenly woke up when he saw Ivan left, and quickly picked up his clothes and bag and followed. "Wait for me." Gwen turned his head, his eyes reflecting the dashing back of Ivan's departure. "Wait until Ivan is completely out of sight." She just turned her head and looked at Eugene, who was being supported, and finally left without looking back. Out of school. Walk the streets of Queens. Peter Parker surrounds Ivan, walking back and forth excitedly. My God, you were so handsome just now. Parker raised his hand and said, have you seen the blonde girl on the other side? Her mouth is so big, haha. Peter Parker wasn't mad at being called a little brother. Instead, he was happy that Ivan was in the limelight. Come on. Ivan waved his hand, and a restrained smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Mr. Mutated Spider in the future, you might even be on the news in the future. That's definitely not the case. I'm talking about the mutant spider in front. At the moment, Peter Parker said to himself, if you have a problem, solve it. I'll go talk to Dr. Connors after school tomorrow. Ivan nodded in agreement. Good luck. Then, the two walked together on their way home. Before the last intersection to separate, a huge display outside a news building suddenly changed to an emergency news. Peter Parker stopped, intending to watch the emergency and eat melons. And Ivan stopped when he saw this, and planned to eat melons. The emergency news in New York is still worth watching for now. A lot of big events are reported on it when they happen. As the signal is turned on, Big TV also spread the news signal successfully. As a result, the live broadcast of the news was actually a press conference. And the protagonist of the news interview is actually Tony Stark. Ivan was a little surprised. He actually came back like this. Closing curly bracket. But it's not too surprising. After all, he omitted the development of the drawings for Mark I, and directly turned the thoughts and ideas in his heart into practical operations. It's Tony Stark. Parker was also surprised, but his accident was different from Ivan's. Isn't he moved by terrorists and rescued so quickly? Ivan lightly explained, it may be that I met a noble. Unlikely. Parker even analyzed it. Then, the news started, and the two stopped talking. Under the History Stark building, Tony was wearing a cast in one hand and eating a burger in the other, sitting on the steps while eating. Maybe you didn't even think I'd be back. I guess you were thinking, this jealous playboy is finally going to see God. Ha 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 ha. The news reporters burst out laughing. Tony's capitalist way of speaking made them feel recognized. One of the reporters also joked, can I have a sports car in my will? Ha 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 ha. The crowd laughed again. That included James Roddy, the future war machine. But Obadiah, the mastermind behind the scenes, is definitely smiling on the surface, but his mother sells criticism in his heart. Obadiah. What's the matter? Overturned, Blanche. He thought, just take this opportunity to kill Tony Stark. Then he would be the sole chairman of She-Stark. As long as he relies on his personal connections, it is easy to control the Stark group. But who would have thought that Tony would be running back in just a few days? Press conference. Tony finished his hamburger, got up, rubbed the oil on Colonel Roddy, and went to the podium to prepare his speech. Roddy looked at the grease on the suit and pouted helplessly. What else can be done then? Who said the relationship between the two is not bad? At the moment, Tony came to the podium and suddenly put away his hippie smile and turned serious. The reporters below stood up one after another. They knew Mr. Stark was about to get serious. Really? Tony Stark stared at the live broadcast and said slowly. Today, now, at this moment, I have two things to announce, one about the Stark group and one about myself. After speaking, he glanced at the expecting reporter and continued. First, now I announce that the weapons department of the Stark group will be permanently closed, and all operations will be suspended, effective immediately. When saying this, Tony Stark's tone was emotionless. Let the phrase closing an entire department be as cold as a sip of water. Peter Parker exclaimed when he saw this. Shut down the weapons department. Isn't 70% of the Stark group's revenue brought by the weapons department? Yes, if Stark Group is not listed, it is even a family business. So even now, Tony Stark has the right to speak his mind in the group. But the right to speak belongs to the right to speak. 70% of the stocks of the entire Stark Group are also held by holders of large file sizes. So it can be seen what kind of drastic changes will be made to the Stark Group in the future. At the reception site, wow, all the reporters present exclaimed. They couldn't believe that Tony Stark would make this decision. And this decision is so firm and without hesitation. But there was no news at all. A reporter quickly raised his hand and asked, Mr. Stark, was the decision to build a car because of the influence you received in Afghanistan? Faced with this question, all journalists pricked up their ears. Yes, Tony nodded unabashedly and added, but not all. Yes, not all. The reason for this is that a piece of data must be opened in the Blue Magic engine. That document, he glanced at it a little while on the road, and focused on the information on the weapon trade. Why did he look at this part so directly? It's also thanks to him seeing missile weapons he only sold to the military at the Afghan terrorist group. That, okay, don't ask any more. At this moment, Obadiah couldn't hold back any longer. Smiling at the live camera, he stepped forward to hug Tony Stark and led him back. At the same time, he explained to the live camera, Stark is a little sick right now, he hasn't recovered from the influence of Afghanistan. No. Tony slowly pushed Obadiah's arm around him. He gave Obadiah a deep look and turned back to his podium. Everything I just said has legal effect. Whoa. The reporters were clamoring again. What they are clamoring for is not the surface meaning of the words. It was the noise that Tony Stark was so determined to carry out his orders. No one would have imagined that Tony Stark, who is considered a playboy outside, who is just a little talented, would be so decisive. As for what turbulence will happen to the group in the future, they don't care, they can't predict it. They only care about how big the trouble is and whether they can get first-hand information. Immediately after simply answering a few questions, Obadiah looked at the irreversible order and left the scene angrily. At this time, a reporter raised his hand and asked, Mr. Stark, just the first sentence, what is the other thing about you? Very good. This time Tony's world-weary face just now disappeared, and he pointed to the reporter with a smile. It's a very good question. Tony Stark changed his face, suddenly looking at the live broadcast camera, and then step by step to the camera, until the face is up. That Band-Aid nose at the moment facing the whole of New York. No, it's the broadcast television hub of the whole of the United States. At the same time the mouth began to speak. I don't know if you are watching this live or not, but I will still say, thank you very much. If you see this video, you can come to the Stark building at any time and let me know. Listen, Tony Stark will always welcome you. Maybe I know what I'm going to say next is rude, but I'll still use all my abilities to find you. It's definitely not malicious, I can guarantee it. After saying this long sentence, Tony turned away from the live camera and went straight outside to get into the car. At the moment, most of the people watching this live broadcast are stunned. Who is he talking about? What did he say? What is he talking about? What is what? The most classic example is that Peter Parker at the moment also froze in place. Call. Ivan took a deep breath and held his forehead helplessly. What's so special? It turned out that eating melons ate on his own head. Peter Parker reacted in surprise and said, "There are really noble people." In this way, being engaged by Tony like this, the social discussion exploded in an instant. After being separated from Parker and returning home, Ivan took out his phone, and it was full of news headlines. Above, who the hell helped Tony Stark? Close double-angle bracket. The Stark Group has announced the permanent closure of the weapons division, but there's nothing better than that. Close double-angle bracket. Who's that person? Why did Stark try his best to find him? Close double-angle bracket. Through detailed analysis, who is the person who helped Stark? Close double-angle bracket. ... Absolutely. Look at the messy news headlines. There are also various speculations and speculations by major reporters. Ivan shook his head helplessly. Fortunately, I wore a mask at the beginning, otherwise it would be really troublesome. It's not that he doesn't want to be exposed, but the impact of this exposure on him is very different from the sense of admiration he brought when he played superhero. The former will have a lot of trouble, and even the strength will not be able to handle it. But otherwise it's very simple, as long as they worship without brains. And the strength growth judgment of the Homelander template refers to that aspect of worship. It's like chasing stars. Speaking of Homelander templates, Ivan also suddenly remembered one thing. Did the Parker thing and Tony's thing strengthen his ability today? Just do it. Ivan came to a clearing. Use ability. Heat sight directly on the surface. A red high temperature warning appeared in Ivan's eyes until the space began to scorch. His eyes widened. 2 fiery red rays of light instantly shot into the ground. Laugh. Immediately, the soil, stones, and gravel began to melt. They streamed down the laser and make a sizzling sound. It took about 3 seconds to shoot. Ivan stopped heat sight's ability. And the holes in the earth are still smoking, and the holes inside are bottomless. At the same time, some visible places on the outside have become crystalline after melting. Seeing this, Ivan nodded in satisfaction. A few days ago, he looked like a pink eye when he activated his ability. But now, his heat vision can absolutely shoot through cars and steel. In the afternoon, Parker's admiration and changes to him, as well as Tony's mentality after returning, really enhanced his ability. Ivan nodded affirmatively after comparing. It looks like this is the right direction. Then, Ivan looked at the sky, and then looked in the direction of home. It's too early to go back. Let's exercise more outside. By the way, we can find an opportunity to see if we can make the debut in New York. After he finished speaking, he put on the black super battle suit and flew straight to the sky. New York. On the road to a private villa by the sea. Tony sat in the back seat of a commercial security car that blocked all information, with one hand in a cast and the other looking at a thick document. Each stack of materials here is marked with a good year. Tony took out the data of the past 2 years, especially the transaction data of the weapons part. This is the information, and some of it was just printed out from the Stark building. And he didn't use a public printer. Instead, I used a private printer in the assistant secretary's room. Tony watched, frowning and pursing his lips. Pepper Potts on the side, that is, Secretary Pepper, was a little puzzled when he saw it. Is there a problem with the arms trading department? Facing Pepper, Tony nodded without concealment. But still only half said, I saw terrorists in Afghanistan using missile weapons produced by the Stark Group. Little Pepper frowned, and she obviously knew at the moment that there were traitors in the group. But she had no choice but to assist Tony. But there was one more thing she cared about. That person, may I ask who it is? Tony looked at the information for a long time, and pressed his eyebrows with a headache. His appearance made me break the scientific knowledge I have learned all my life. So powerful, Little Pepper said unexpectedly. Definitely, those physical rules and things we know have changed in him, and science can't explain it. Tony pushed the knowledge glasses. My God, Little Junk was surprised. Suddenly she noticed the glasses on the bridge of Tony's nose. These glasses are not technically good looking. If it was before, Tony would definitely not wear it, so Little Pepper asked curiously. Why are you wearing these glasses? Ah, Tony Stark teased. The matter of glasses is the most important thing for him at present, and no one can say it. So he waved his hand and explained casually, for learning. Ha 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 ha, Little Pepper couldn't help laughing. After talking, the car stopped. After arriving at the destination, Tony's driver, the Fat Happy, parked the car in the garage. He just got out of the car to help Tony open the car door. But Tony just opened the door with the other hand and got out. Then go directly to the laboratory on the negative floor of the villa. Little Pepper hurriedly got out of the car with the information in the car, and shouted at Tony, You are injured now, you should rest. I have more important things to do. Tony shook his head without looking back. In the negative second floor parking garage, take the elevator to the negative floor. After dropping the two, Tony came to the laboratory. The elevator door opened. Jarvis intelligently said, Sir, welcome home. After taking a deep breath, Tony looked at the familiar feeling around him and slumped down on the chair. After taking a break and thinking for a while, Tony sat up and started talking seriously. Jarvis, help me collect the internal information of the entire history of Stark Group, and analyze the weapons transaction part. Okay, sir. After instructing Jarvis, Tony moved his chair back to the table and started doing something else. He created 3 projects on the smart computer, and placed it in the most conspicuous position. 1. Magic Engine Merchant. 2. Mark Armor Total. 3. Stark Group Trader. The next day, after exercising all night without watching any horrors in New York, Ivan simply washed up and went to school. Still as usual, Peter Parker was already waiting for him at the door. The backpack was still taken by Peter Parker, and the two entered the campus together. But unlike usual, many classmates who knew the two of them looked at them with different eyes. What happened yesterday was fermented overnight. Many people know that Ivan is not only good at learning, but also very strong, and he can make Eugene so much that he does not dare to trouble the two of them. Parker walked beside Ivan. Now that he has spider ability, he can definitely feel the changes in the eyes of the people around him. This change he could not express in words. But honestly, it's cool. A door to a new world seemed to open in Parker's mind. That's how strength works. There is no need to hide and tuck all the time. Instead, expose as much as you should. Before Ivan shot yesterday, no one knew he was so powerful. That's it. The day actually goes by very quickly. It's gym class in the afternoon. Unlike yesterday, today's sport is basketball. Definitely, if you don't want to fight, you can go to the seat next to you to do other things, as long as you don't go out and run around. Looking at several classmates who have changed their clothes, Peter Parker asked, Ivan, do you want to go up and play? No. Ivan shook his head. Hit him with about the same amount of force and you can kill someone. What's the point of playing with fake power in acting? What's more, when it's hot, it's still crowded in a group of people with smelly sweat, and there is no such interest at the moment than basketball. He wanted to have a good fight to test his strength. The classmates in the field were relieved to hear that Ivan was not fighting. In their current understanding, judging from the physical qualities Ivan showed yesterday, who can stand it when the body fights? At this time, a teacher suddenly entered the basketball hall. He glanced around and waved when he spotted Ivan. Student Ivan, please come out, I have something to tell you. What? Peter Parker was stunned, and asked even more anxiously than Ivan, why did you ask Ivan to come over? Someone told me because he bullied Eugene yesterday, the teacher explained. Pissed, the people around couldn't help laughing. Eugene, who bullied people every day, was bullied now, and it was passed on to the teacher. During the basketball game, Eugene's face was a little ugly, but still dare not speak out. With his stubborn temper, it's definitely not what he complained about. That teacher can only come because of one reason. That is, this day, the school is spreading this thing. And everyone knows it, and the teacher knows it. Therefore, because this matter is widely spread, the teacher wants to remind it. Eugene Boyle. After figuring out the reason, Ivan nodded helplessly with a smile on his mouth. He got up and said, okay, I see. Watching Ivan walk out gracefully, Peter Parker was in awe. No matter what time he was called by the teacher, he was much more cowardly than this. And everything Ivan has done these days, he can't guarantee that he can do it too. Same. Seeing Ivan walking out, Eugene's face was even more gloomy and terrifying. He turned to look at Parker. I thought to myself, even if I will be beaten by Ivan afterwards, I have to make trouble with Peter Parker now, better let him cry. After all, he flicked the basketball in his hand and threw it directly at Parker. The basketball was thrown very quickly, completely with force. But no one expected that. Bang! With a muffled sound, Peter Parker held the basketball firmly in his palm with one hand. What? Now it's the other people's turn to be surprised. They didn't expect that Peter Parker could react so quickly. And you can hold the basketball firmly with one hand. Has he played basketball before? No. How was that caught? Looking at the basketball in his hand, Peter Parker stood up and said slowly. You want me to play basketball with you? Don't know how. Peter Parker at the moment is confident. Think of what Ivan would do when faced with this kind of problem. Peter Parker's eyes and ears are rendered inside, watching Parker simply parry his attack. Eugene said solemnly, you can come and try. Okay, very good. Peter Parker laughs and walks down the stairs. He came to Eugene. Just stretch out the hand holding the basketball, face up, and the basketball is in the palm of your hand. This kind of thing that Eugene would do before, now he has to do it himself. Treat people with their own way. At this moment Peter Parker woke up and said, how others treat me, I should treat them. Whoever is nice to me, I am nice to whoever. Whoever treats me badly, I will pay him back. Ivan, Ben Uncle, and May, these are all people who are kind to themselves. The bad one is Eugene in front of him. Thought here. Peter Parker let go of his concerns and looked at Eugene teasingly. Come and grab it. In the face of provocation, how could Eugene, who was already angry, bear it? He stepped up to Parker and looked at him. But at the moments Peter Parker is not at all cowardly. In the eyes that looked at each other, there was no timidity at all, only confidence and courage. Humph! Eugene's face turned ruthless, and he suddenly started to grab the basketball. Who? But after a while of trance. How did the basketball go to the other side? Wow! All the students around were surprised. Because in their third angle, Peter Parker's hands are very fast. When the afterimage almost appeared, the ball went to the other side. Peter, come on. Some people even started cheering Peter Parker around. When Parker heard this, he felt a little dazed. Before this, it was impossible for anyone to support him. But at the same time, his convictions are stronger. Watch Peter Parker in a trance amid the cheers. Seeing the opportunity, Eugene leaned forward and grabbed it to the other side. Although this is a bit of a win even if caught, but who cares, Eugene just wants to win now. Who? But the next moment, Eugene was still stunned by the facts in front of him. It was as if a gust of wind had passed, but Peter Parker, who didn't move his eyes, was still so fast. This is spider telepathy. Classic muscle memory is faster than the brain. Commonly known as mindless. Seeing that Eugene failed to grab the ball again, Peter Parker turned his head and shook it slowly. Generally pissed, the people around couldn't help but laugh again. A classmate shouted, "Parker, you have learned too much from Ivan." Parker smiled helplessly without denying it. Eugene was furious when he saw this. But he is not stupid. Knowing that his reaction was not as fast as Parker's, after he couldn't grab the ball in Parker's hands, he chose to fight with physical fitness. After all, from the outside, Parker's physical fitness is not as good as Eugene's. So Eugene stopped grabbing the ball, and instead stepped back, all the way to the middle of the three-point line. Come here, Parker. Eugene's face turned red, and the protruding blood vessels on his neck roared provocatively. If it's a man, come to grab the board and step over my body. The crowd looked at Peter Parker expectantly. After all, Peter Parker wins on the ball. Can he still win on the board? Or, will Peter Parker hold back? Looking at Eugene, who was already in overload, Peter Parker reluctantly patted the ball on the ground, ready to confront him head-on. At the same time, he was also amazed at the change in himself. If it were before, Peter Parker would find a reason. Or the hot-blooded one came forward and was abused. But now, in the face of Eugene's provocation, Peter Parker didn't change his mind. You can even say that you don't care. Could this be the state of mind after understanding the use of power? After 2 shots on the spot, Eugene looked at Parker and continued shouting, "Come here. Challenge me." Peter Parker didn't say anything. Instead, he slapped the ball at the end and looked directly at the basket without looking at Eugene. Then, pat, Peter Parker took a step. Immediately rushed towards Eugene. Oh, go Peter Parker. The students immediately cheered when they saw it. When Eugene saw Peter Parker rushing over, he immediately squatted and prepared to defend. But what made him feel unexpected was, at the moment when the two bodies collided, Eugene felt like he had hit a wall, or a large animal. Then it was knocked to the ground by an irresistible force. He was bewildered. It's stupid to lie on the ground. And his eyes were looking upwards just as Peter Parker flipped him and jumped in place, flying straight towards the basket. All the students present were dumbfounded. They looked at the trapezes Peter Parker, speechless in shock. Next moment, boom, whoa, accompanied by a violent dunk sound, there is also the sound of glass shattering. Peter Parker dunked on the rim with both hands, and the glass of the backboard shattered to the ground. Jingle bell. At this time, the bell rang, and school was over. Peter Parker wobbles at the rim. Then let go and fall down and stand firmly. He glanced at Eugene, who had collapsed on the ground beside him. Peter Parker, calmly, walked up the stairs, picked up his bag and Ivan's bag and walked out the door. Now he didn't even care what Gwen looked at, carrying a bag in one hand and a bag in the other. From an angle that no one else can see, Parker's hand shakes slightly. This is not fear, but reflects the psychological state of his master at the moment. What happened? Parker just arrived at the gate. The teacher who asked Ivan to chat just now heard the sound of breaking and walked in. The moment I saw Ivan, Peter Parker's face was happy, and he wanted to say something immediately, but he stopped immediately. The teacher looked at the situation in the room, and then looked at the eyes of the students, and immediately knew that Peter Parker did it. He shook his head helplessly. You also come to the office. Afternoon. The students are out of school. There are also very few people on campus. But Ivan was sitting in a chair playing with Snake on his phone. Stop asking why. Definitely waiting for Peter Parker. Don't ask what to wait for him. Because Peter Parker was called a parent. Ivan was just waiting for him. After half a sound, Uncle Ben walked out of the office with Peter Parker. Different from the excited look before entering, Peter Parker at the moment is a bit castrated. He's educating Peter Parker. Why do you have to deal with him? Is he the one who did your wound the other day? But why do you want to report back the bullying you suffered before? You're thinking you're cool now. But because of your incident, I have to ask for leave to change shifts, and I have to pay for this basket. So at 9 o'clock tonight, you're going to pick up your Aunt May, okay? Uncle Ben's output brought Peter Parker, who was originally in high spirits, back to the prototype. Done. He turned to look at Ivan, then walked away. Wait until Uncle Ben leaves. Seeing Ivan, Peter Parker walked over a little embarrassedly. Ivan didn't say anything, but turned off the greedy snake that was too long to fit on the phone screen, got up and said calmly. Let's go. Left school. The two were walking on the road by the sea. Ivan didn't mention Uncle Ben educating him, but suddenly patted Parker's shoulder with a smile. It's awesome, they smashed the basketball hoop, they must be dumbfounded. Peter Parker bowed his head and kicked the stones, his tone lost. I have to be criticized by the whole school. Isn't that better? Ivan asked rhetorically. I think I have to add an apology on stage, and I must explain the details of the broken rebound. Peter Parker. Next, what he didn't know was. What Ivan says later will completely change all understanding and cognition since he was born. Do you think your uncle is right or wrong? With the gentle sea breeze blowing, Ivan suddenly asked this question. Still in the circle, Ivan said that Peter Parker, who had been informed by the whole school, was tangled again at the moment. To tell the truth, he did not agree with all the words of Uncle Ben. Especially after spending time with Ivan. But in fact, he couldn't refute what Uncle Ben said. Ivan looked at his hesitation and said with satisfaction, I knew the answer at the moment of your hesitation. In the face of Ivan, Peter Parker made no pretense. What do I do? Ivan shook his head, not answering the question directly. It depends on how you understand it. From your uncle's point of view, he is right. He doesn't want you to show any limelight, and he doesn't want your life to be ups and downs. He just wants you to be quiet and not end up disappearing inexplicably like your parents. Yeah, at the moments Peter Parker woke up a little after hearing those words. Think about it from this position. He suddenly understood Uncle Ben just now. But, speaking of which, Ivan's words changed. Peter Parker immediately turned his head and listened closely. When you stand in someone else's point of view and position, it is always for others. Sometimes, you need to think about yourself first. Someone bullied you, why can't you go back with revenge? As for what will happen to the person who gets revenge, who cares? It is people who are responsible for what they have done. With someone you like, why can't you express yourself normally? With ability, why can't I do what my heart wants to do? Anything you do is because you want to do it, you do it, not because of ability, not because of others, but because of yourself. Whether it's right or wrong, you'll be held accountable. Bad people will do bad things when they get power, and good people will do good things when they get power. Is it because of power? The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. That's true, but only if you want to do it, not force yourself to do it. If you want to do it, the bigger the ability, the more responsibility you can take, and that's right. But if you don't want to do it, this sentence is empty talk and moral kidnapping. So, strength comes from the heart, not from good deeds. Do you understand? As they talked, neither of them knew how far they had gone. Wait until Ivan finishes speaking. Peter Parker was still walking straight in absent-mindedness. The mouth is still constantly muttering. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. Be responsible for what you do. Power is not good or bad. I am myself, I am myself. Be yourself in your heart. Speaking of which, Peter Parker finally stopped, slowly raised his head, looked at the endless sky, his tone gradually firmed until he couldn't shake it. I am Peter Parker. After speaking, Peter Parker, who recovered, looked around. I just saw the back of Ivan leaving. The moment he heard that Parker recognized himself, he went home dashingly. Ivan, Peter Parker yelled at the back not far away, thank you. With Ivan's super hearing, he definitely heard it. But he definitely won't do such a devious thing by shouting. So he waved his hand behind his back, then pulled out his phone and texted Parker. Parker took out his phone and took a look. Ivan, remember to pick up your Aunt May at 9 p.m. Parker turns off his phone and calls out to Ivan again. I see, Ivan, ... After being separated from Parker, Ivan didn't come home either. Instead, he threw the bag into the system space, and then went to practice ability in a place where no one was around. Although Ivan knew that his main task should be to sell the magic engine. But he knew better that now was not the time. Currently Peter Parker and Tony Stark have sold. There is no point in selling it in a short period of time. They are all one of the protagonists of this universe, and the purple magic engine that Ivan drives can be understood as borrowing their luck. So until these lucks are restored, there will be no good things for sale. Since both sides can't open good things, there is no need to chase after them, otherwise people will feel very cheap and not cherished. At the moment the sky is getting darker. Above New York, a black figure shuttled back and forth between the clouds. Because this person was flying at an extremely fast speed, the clouds he passed through were all knocked aside or scattered. It was not until the man stopped and the black cloak floated that he could not see the figure clearly. This man is Ivan, he found out after exercising freely in a black super battle suit for a while. Since separating from Peter Parker, his ability strength has soared. Just now his flight speed had reached the speed of sound. This is nearly triple the initial flight speed. It seems that those words just now are very important to Parker. The importance of Ivan to Peter Parker has increased a lot. That's why it adds so much power. Ivan was at a high altitude, clenching his fists to feel the increasing power. Looks in the right direction. Become superhero in superhero's mind. Totally doable. Then Ivan looked down at the dimly lit New York and said lightly. The next step is to test the improvement of ability for ordinary people. Boom. As a result, Ivan just finished speaking. Through supervision and hearing, he could already see a bank being robbed at gunpoint in the distance. Several Mud brothers are fighting a policeman with pistols and rifles. The location where the bank was robbed was on a corner of Queens. This bank is old and broken, and there are few police around. And the cameras are not complete. It just happened to meet the police, it was completely bad luck. But now I just happened to meet myself who wanted to experiment. That's really appalling. A smile appeared at the corner of Ivan's mouth, and he flew straight down. Really think of what to come. Just installed. Try ability. Chapter 11. Report, 42 Garden Street, Queens, a bank is being robbed at gunpoint. There are 4 people on the other side, a total of 2 pistols, a submachine gun and a rifle, ask for support. Repeat, Queens. At the moment the policeman was hiding in the corner near the bank calling for support. And the gunshots just now were the opponent's counterattack. In the face of 4 people with guns, the police did not dare to move if they wanted to. Once he goes in to confront, it is estimated that the news of his death will spread to the police station tomorrow. So he chose to hide and leave one eye as a real eye. Definitely, his body cam has also been turned on. This is the equipment that every police officer needs to wear, which helps to analyze and collect evidence after the fact. The police station liaison replied on the other side, okay, increase support immediately. Wait, suddenly, the policeman called out again in surprise. What happened, Officer Jason? The liaison asked immediately. A black-clothed Superman flew down from the sky. Jason said hesitantly, and he couldn't believe it himself. What? The liaison was dumbfounded, wondering if Jason had seen it clearly. Constable Jason, look again. Jason rubs his eyes when he hears it, then sticks his head out to look again. Yes, that's right, he's still there. My recorder can testify. If there is a recorder, the liaison can only believe it. Okay, pay attention to safety, reinforcements will arrive soon. I see. New York, downtown Manhattan. Many Audi police cars are rushing here with flashing lights. And Ivan, who had just landed on his feet, walked into the bank happily. I saw Ivan walk in swaggeringly. The mud brother with the submachine gun at the door was blinded. No, big brother, you come in like this, we don't want to lose face. The mud brother with the submachine gun scolded and pulled the trigger directly at Ivan. Da 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 da. Immediately, as flames spewed from the muzzle, orange bullets shot out, and the barrel emitted gunpowder. At such a close distance, even presbyopia can hit all. The hostages in the bank were all scared to tears by the gunshots. They also thought that the mud buddies had torn up the votes. Result: ping 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 ping. It was accompanied by a rubbing sound similar to that of metal. All the bullets hit Ivan's chest. As a result, nothing happened. If reality is a game, you can also see a bunch of damage coming out of Ivan's head. -0, -0, -0. The submachine gun's rate of fire was very fast, but in 2 seconds, Brother Mew emptied the magazine. He looked at the man who remained motionless in front of him. Brother Nee rolled his eyes, and he was already tense, and he fainted from fright after the first robbery. Speechless, Ivan swept his chest, turned and continued to walk inside the bank. The hostages were being guarded inside, and Brother Mew, who was looting money, hurriedly came out when he heard the gunshots. What happened? As soon as he came out, he saw Ivan in a black super battle suit walking over. Brother Mew frowned, thinking it was some cosplayer. He raised the rifle in his hand and motioned for Ivan to squat beside him. You, squat down honestly. I heard another familiar swear word. Ivan sighed and walked forward unhurriedly. Brother Mew scolded again when he saw it. Go away, stand over there. They also don't want to kill if it's not a requirement. Because the way the police deal with the murder is very different. But I saw that Ivan was still moving forward. Brother Mew warned again. I'll say it again, get out. At the moment Ivan has come to his muzzle. Seeing Ivan posted so close. In addition, the mud brother saw the perfect muscle outline under Ivan's black super battle suit. If you get closer now, you may not be able to shout if you shoot yourself. So he looked ruthless and cursed. You forced me to die. Mud brother pulled the trigger. And Ivan also reached out. Grabbed the barrel of his gun. Yes, that's right, one grabs the barrel. After grabbing the barrel, Ivan squeezed lightly. Gah, accompanied by a harsh metal friction sound. The barrel was squashed directly by Ivan. But Brother Mew has already pulled the trigger of the rifle. Bang, bang. First the explosion of gunpowder sounded. Then the cover of the rifle was directly overturned and exploded. Under the violent expansion of gunpowder, Brother Nee has realized it. Exploded, but he didn't understand why. Just by the man in front of him holding the barrel. But what about holding the barrel? Can he squeeze it flat? Pissed. What? The cracked barrel blasted out a bunch of parts. Rifles that were already outdated and not well maintained started to explode. One of the parts went directly into Brother Mew's eyes. For a moment, Brother Mew lay directly on the ground, covering his eyes, twisting and twitching like a maggot. Ah, Ivan sighed softly. It's too overwhelming, it's kind of boring. At this time, he felt that someone was aiming at him from behind. But he was too lazy to respond. Boom, ping, it's a pistol. The bullet hit Ivan in the back and bounced off. Pat. Ivan turned around, and the black cloak floated with it. The mud brother who shot was also stunned. Somebody actually resists bullets. Is that human being? Looking at the miserable appearance of the companions who fell to the ground at the door and indoors. Hug. I'm sorry. Brother Mew threw the pistol with a clatter, and quickly knelt on the ground and hugged his head with both hands. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This time, the hostages saw that the situation had changed. They immediately shouted excitedly, Save me Superman, balls you. Black Superman, defeat them, give them some color and see. Watching crowd of emotional hostages. The face under Ivan's mask was unmoved. He looked at Brother Mew who was kneeling on the ground, and said lightly. Tie your own hands and feet. Okay, sir. Brother Mew's trembling body didn't kill him. He immediately got up and tied his hands and feet with dead knots with the rope he brought. Then lie on the ground curled up and pretend to be dead. Seeing this is not a lesson. Ivan plans to use ability directly next time. Well, after all, Cool pretend skills can also increase the popularity of social fans to a certain extent. At this time, through super hearing, Ivan heard someone approaching from the side. He turned around, just to see the last mud brother dragging the bag, just came here. Because of the sound of gunfire just now, he held a pistol in his hand and looked around carefully. I saw Ivan in a black super battle suit appearing in front of him. It is found that it is not a companion, and there is no companion around. He raised his pistol and fired at Ivan. The next moment, Ivan's eyes blazed with fiery light, hitting his pistol directly. Almost instantly, the pistol also began to melt. Brother Mew did not pull the trigger, and was poured on his hand by the molten metal magma from the pistol. Ah! The mud brother screamed and knelt on the ground. His other hand wanted to help the gunman out, but the high-temperature metal slurry made him afraid to touch it. While screaming, he began to bow his head to Ivan again. "Save me, please." Facing unbearable pain, even if the Ivan in front of him was identified as an enemy just now, he would ask for help. After all, the pain of fire is one of the highest on the pain scale. Few people can stand the scorching flames. What's more, this is molten metal magma. And he wrapped his entire hand. Faced with the humble call for help from Brother Mew, Ivan turned around and ignored it. You are responsible for what you have done. When they choose to rob a bank, it is their responsibility to take all risks. So Ivan definitely wouldn't ask the Virgin to help them. Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Superman. At this moment, the hostages who were almost stunned just now cheered again. They saw that Ivan could shoot lasers from both eyes when facing the gun. Human body. Extraordinary ability. This is not Superman. What is this? Facing the cheers of the crowd, Ivan waved his hand in response. At the same time he sighed inwardly. Too weak. Ordinary people are too weak. This simply does not allow him to experiment with his ability. Then this time, it is basically an experiment to increase the social popularity of how much ability will increase. I don't know how much ability can be improved after today's events are fermented. If there are more, this thing can be done for a long time. If it's less, then forget it. It's better to live a normal life at home. Why come to New York every day to work? Beep. At this time, there were several sirens at the door of the bank. At the same time, the loudspeaker shouted, "The New York police have surrounded this place. Please put down the firearms inside." The flashing light of the police lights can give a good warning to the confronting terrorists at night. At the same time, it is not the time when you have to deal with the gun as a last resort. The flashing lights also help distract officers. But Ivan is definitely not a terrorist. He's just a superhero out of interest. Ivan calmly walked to the door of the bank. For a time, several searchlights hit Ivan. The bright light illuminated Ivan's body clearly, and even the slightly bulging muscles of the golden ratio in the black super battle suit could be swept away at a glance. Click, click, click. The sound of taking pictures suddenly sounded. One of the officers shouted, "He's the one I said fell from the sky." He didn't say it was okay, but he said that there were a few more infrared light spots on Ivan's body. And many more. At this time, a police officer with short blonde hair and a body armor came out from the back of the car. He looked at Ivan and shouted, "Sir, we don't mean anything. We know it wasn't you who robbed the bank, but maybe we need to talk." Ivan saw that he was Gwen Stacy's police chief's father, George. "You can go in and finish." Ivan was unmoved, just said lightly. "Done." Ivan looked up at the sky. Officer George seems to know something. He hurriedly shouted again, "Sir." Wait, but he wasn't finished yet. Ivan flew to the sky in an instant. The surrounding police officers were dumbfounded and did not even react. The snipers on the nearby rooftops all rubbed their eyes, thinking their eyes were broken. That sniper scope looks good. Why is it gone in a blink of an eye? I'm presbyopic. Ah, Gwen's father, Officer George, sighed. He stretched out his hand and waved to the police officer behind him. Go in and see if any of the 4 gangsters have died. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Watching the police officers in bulletproof vests enter one by one, George sighed sadly. This kind of extraordinary event happened here, and it was troublesome for him, for better or for worse. If the black-clothed Superman just now, he can't handle it. Then he can only report to the special department of the country to deal with it. But if this kind of thing is reported, it will look like the NYPD is not good enough. After a while, the officers came out with the evacuated hostages. Some of the rescued hostages could not cry, and immediately hugged the family members who came. But some hostages are different. They rushed to the reporter excitedly and said excitedly, "We were saved by a black-clothed Superman. His strength is so great that he can crush the barrel of a rifle with his bare hands, and his eyes can shoot lasers." Exactly. And his body is also very strong, and bullets will bounce off him when they hit him. The sneak attack from the back of the Mud Brother just now is useless. Exactly. Officer George knew there was a lot of trouble when he heard it. The eyes can shoot lasers, and the body is not afraid of bullets. It was too powerful and too terrifying. Someone once said that no carbon-based creatures are not afraid of 7.62, but now it has changed, and it has become bigger. At this time, the detective who specialized in analyzing the scene and collecting intelligence came to George's side, and also conveyed the message in his ear with a serious look. After Officer George heard and confirmed, there was absolutely no hope for this matter. He waved his hand, got into the police car and said to his assistant, "This matter is beyond our scope of handling. I have to go back to the police station and report it." News of the black-clad Superman spread throughout the country. The day before yesterday, the headlines of the major news were Tony Stark, and tonight it has become a black Superman. Camera recording. Journalists take pictures. Captured by passers-by. On-site testimony. There is so much evidence that the New York police can't even seal it. And the people present at the time did not say much, at least there were dozens of people. In addition, there are reporters carrying cameras to broadcast. So just on the way, there will be back to the main news station. So in less than a few hours, news of the black-clad Superman spread all over New York. Oh my God! Officer George's head grew big when he looked at the headlines of the major news. Fortunately, everyone's attention is not on the police. Otherwise, he is really suffering. When 7.62 encountered its existence, it became a fire stick. The assistant next to Officer George brought a clear envelope. Inside the bag were submachine gun bullets. According to the on-site knowledge, these bullets were all fired in Superman's chest within 1 meter, but even if the bullet was completely flat, the opponent was unharmed. I see. Officer George waved his hand. I have spoken to the mayor just now. Fortunately, Mr. Mayor doesn't blame us. This matter has been assigned to the people above, and we only need to provide on-site information. Yes, sir. Sir, there is another case of robbing a supermarket at the security check tonight, but it was subdued by a man who played the role of a spider and then disappeared. After George listened, he said without any fluctuations in his mood, "Let the people below handle it, it's much easier than Superman." Yes, sir. Late at night a few hours later. The shield of the Homeland Strategic Defense, Attack and Logistics Support Agency, the future shield, is still brightly lit. Inside the Ministry of Investigation and Communications building, the bald head Nick Fury and SHIELD Level 9 agent Maria Hill are directing the staff to investigate all night. Nick Fury rested his hands on the fence on the steps, looking at the agent's airways that were being urgently investigated. Why did a black-clad Superman pop up in New York and we never found a trace? How did Tony Stark quickly create a high-tech mecha in the desert? Who is helping him? Why do we always find out in hindsight? Don't we have to be invaded internally in the future to know that we have been invaded? Hear Nick Fury's last words. The other bald leader under the steps was almost startled. He didn't move his eyes, only glanced at Nick Fury out of the corner of his eye, only to find out that he was really just giving an example, and then he was slowly relieved. Thought it was found. Click. At this time, the door opened and another Level 9 agent of SHIELD, Phil Coulson, walked in with the tablet. He hands the tablet to Director Nick Fury. Then he said on the side, by investigating the cameras and information all over New York, the black-clothed Superman did not reveal a single trace before this operation. Nick Fury frowned, looking at the missing trace data. There are only two possibilities. Hill said suddenly beside him. First, he came from somewhere else. Second, he lives in Twitch, but hides his identity. But the first possibility is very small. Phil Coulson took the tablet and called up the satellite data. The satellites and radars above Twist have never found a trace. That may be his size is too small for satellites and radar. Hill countered. Or his black battle suit has the ability to block signals and capture. But what if the Stark group also provided information? Phil Coulson suddenly reversed. Just now, Mr. Tony Stark also provided information on the group's defense scanning system after hearing about this. There is no trace of Superman in black before this. Okay. Watching the two of them discuss more and more intensely, Nick Fury interrupted them before continuing. Whether he came from the outside or just lived in Toriko, the question now is how to deal with him, who is he, and what is the detailed ability. Nick Fury flips through the files on the tablet. There are also many short videos and pictures. These include when Ivan releases his heat sight, when he squeezes the barrel with his bare hands, when he receives bullets from the front, and so on. Nick Fury said with a sullen look on his face. Superman, who is not afraid of bullets, how should our agent's gun face him? You can fly, you can shoot lasers with your eyes, you are not afraid of bullets, and your power is infinite. Speaking of the back, Nick Fury raised his hand and rubbed his uncomfortable eyebrows. If he's our enemy, it's basically difficult to deal with him, Hill analyzed. As long as he stays in the city, we can't use missiles and nuclear bombs. Don't think it's that bad yet. Nick Fury thought for a moment and said, judging from his kindness to help the bank today, this is good news for us. Phil Coulson agent, you are responsible for investigating who the black-clothed Superman is in New York and what abilities he has. Hill agent, you also need to be in charge of the investigation together. At the command, Hill agent nodded along with Phil Coulson agent. The appearance of the black-clothed Superman incident almost exceeded the upper limit of the processing ability of their Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau. Although they are agents, they are not Superman, nor can they deal with Superman. They don't have superhero yet. If they really want to encounter an intractable incident, they can only bite the bullet. Otherwise, will their game still have meaning? Back in the S.H.I.E.L.D. director's office, Nick Fury opened the S.H.I.E.L.D. internal system, then unlocked the password lock firewall, and finally reached a project file. And the content of the file is, Superhero. In the project file of Superhero, there are two projects temporarily. One is Iron Man, and the contents of the file are the battle armor and the arc reactor that Tony built in Afghanistan. The second is Dr. Banner. The contents of the document are mutant serum and Hulk. Then, Nick Fury hesitation again and again, adding another item. 3. Black Superman. The next day, after waking up from the big bed in the high-level apartment, Ivan stretched, then flew out of the bed and stood up. But the next moment, he stopped and stayed where he was. Ivan felt some changes in his body. He made a fist out of thin air. The eyes are preloaded again to the state before the activation of thermal sight. Judging from the degree of redness last night, if Ivan's heat vision shoots out this time, it will be much stronger than yesterday's. After Ivan felt it for a while, it's actually strengthened so much. This feeling of increased power is about the same level as when he directed Spider-Man not long ago. Picking up his phone, Ivan checked the internet. Before he searched, the overwhelming advertisements and headlines appeared in his field of vision. Video, copywriting, commentary, analysis. You can find information on various black-clad Supermans on the website. Real, fake, made up, everything. Seeing how hot it was, he knew why. I see. People here worship heroism, worship power, worship powerful creatures. Ivan's thoughts gradually became clear. The more aloof he is, the easier it is to be admired when ordinary people can only look up. The easier it is to indirectly improve your ability. If you are the same as other superhero, or have no characteristics, or no B-type, you will be lost among many superhero. But being yourself is different. The golden ratio of muscles in the battlesuit makes female fans crazy. The mysterious black super battlesuit and powerful ability make the blood of male supporters boil. Plus Ivan is unique. No superhero can be so strong. So the fermentation last night can be called crazy in 2 words. Summarize the above reasons. Ivan thought about his exposure level first. 1. It cannot appear frequently anytime and anywhere, and it must maintain a sense of mystery and rarity. 2. You don't need to take action on small things, and let Peter Parker to do the big ones, but big events must appear. 3. In the future, even if the identity of the black superhero is exposed in superhero, it cannot be exposed in the society. Even if there is a day when it is exposed, it needs to be well paved to spread. After confirming the plan, Ivan picked up the school bag and went to school calmly. Ahem, he's just a teenage high school student, still very tender. He is Black Super when he is black, and he is Ivan when he is Ivan. If the two are mixed together, life will become very chaotic and troublesome. Leave a piece of pure land for your life, this is the most healing. Come to school. Peter Parker was still waiting for Ivan as he was. Just took the bag from Ivan. Peter Parker whispered excitedly. Ivan, after I went to pick up Aunt May last night, I knocked out a man who robbed and assaulted at gunpoint on the way outside. As soon as Ivan heard this, he knew that Peter Parker had indeed changed. He went to pick up Aunt May, and his views on Uncle Ben also changed and understood. He's no longer the Spider-Man who came to his senses after suffering. He's the all-new superhero Spider-Man under Ivan's own tutelage. Then did you remember to hide your identity? Ivan joked, I don't want to see you being taken away by the police in class. My God, Ivan's words left Parker speechless. You don't think of me as a child, I made a full set of clothes. Speaking of which, he said cautiously. It's in my bag, I'll show you after school. Okay, Ivan said that he was really looking forward to it. Let me see how your cuz level is. That's it. Wait until after school. Peter Parker dragged Ivan away impatiently. Gwen, who was packing her school bag, looked at the two of them suspiciously. She thought about it and followed slowly. After taking Ivan to an abandoned shipyard, Peter Parker couldn't wait to open his bag, took out his original spider battlesuit and shook it in front of Ivan. Scoff. Looking at this original battlesuit, Ivan couldn't help laughing. This battlesuit is made of cloth in a large area, and the eyes of the headgear are closed with two sunglasses. There is also a slight bulge where the needle and thread pass, making this dress look like a beginner's work as a whole, which is very funny. Seeing Ivan burst out laughing, Peter Parker bit the bullet and said, I will definitely upgrade in the future. Definitely need to upgrade. For this matter, Ivan's support. Maybe you can look at the material of the clothes on the athletes, especially the short track speed skaters, the material of their clothes is very suitable. Really, Peter Parker was overjoyed when he heard it. I'll check when I go back. He was worried about what material to use. I thought about it a lot last night, and the results all passed one by one. At this time, Peter Parker suddenly remembered something. He tilted his head happily behind him and said, Ivan, I usually work out here, come and see. This dock is where Peter Parker usually works out. There is a huge amount of Hulk in the dock. As soon as Ivan followed Peter Parker in, he saw a lot of chains hanging above the Hulk. The chains are all placed at the right angle. Peter Parker explained. These chains allow me to move fast, and that's where I practice climbing. Then he pointed to a scrap steel plate full of poked holes and said, This plate is where I practice spears. Seeing this, Ivan stared at the chains for a proper reminder. After you get the ability of the spider, is there no cobweb? There are no chains in the city to help you move. Cobweb. Peter Parker pondered after hearing this, and suddenly realized, yes. Next, just as he was about to say something, a female voice came from outside. Peter Parker. With that said, people are about to come in. Parker immediately looked at the spider battlesuit beside him. Crap. Facing the girl who came suddenly. Peter Parker blinked and the figure flashed, suddenly appeared next to the oil drum next to him, stuffed the spider battlesuit on it into the bag and pulled it, then flashed back immediately. He showed up last night in this battlesuit. If Gwen sees it, it will not be guessed now, and it will definitely be guessed in the future. Pat. With the sound of footsteps. The person who came in turned out to be Gwen Stacy. After she entered the abandoned ship, she looked at the surrounding environment and asked, You come here after school? Ah, Peter Parker's mind turned and he immediately replied, This is the secret base we agreed to, and I will come here for a walk if I have nothing to do. As soon as Gwen heard Peter Parker's explanation. First I thought they were naive, and then I suddenly reacted. If this is obviously a prevarication, what do you think it is true? But Peter Parker obviously didn't want to tell her. So Gwen nodded, stopped asking, and joked instead. Then your secret base was discovered by me, and I am one of them. Peter Parker took a peek at Ivan and nodded in agreement after seeing that Ivan had not refused. Okay, count on you. That's settled. Gwen held the book and glanced at the school bag whose red clothes were stuck on the zipper because the oil drum closed too fast. Then he turned around and waved. Then I won't disturb you, the laboratory still needs me. Watching Gwen leave, until the figure completely disappeared. Peter Parker breathed a sigh of relief. Almost, I'm about to say goodbye to my high school life. Then why don't you want to be a star or an internet celebrity? Ivan joked and looked at the zipper of the bag Gwen had just been looking at. In fact, his ability, super hearing, has heard Gwen coming. But the reminder will make you feel inexplicable. It's better to follow the development and see what will happen. He still remembered a word from the time administration outside this universe. The divine timeline will bring any unexpected developments to an end and bring the timeline back to normal. So, the back and forth adjustment of the plot will become very interesting. And many more. Thinking of this, Ivan suddenly realized. I'm the one stirring up the timeline. That is to say, in the future, the people of the time administration will arrest themselves like Loki. Gone. Ivan shook his head helplessly. The transmigration thing can't be undone, it can only be done by constantly becoming stronger. And just now Peter Parker heard Ivan's joke and shook his head decisively and explained. I nicknamed my ability, Spider-Man. I just want Spider-Man to be remembered, not Peter Parker. Besides, Ben Uncle and Aunt May also want me to be calm, and I like a normal life myself. Whether it's a celebrity or an internet celebrity, they don't have their own private life. So, I'll just be a Spider-Man. After listening, Ivan patted Peter Parker on the shoulder with satisfaction. Very good. At present, people like Peter Parker who can stick to a normal life after obtaining an ability that is different from ordinary people in their teens. Very little. Teenagers are the age of passion. Most people of this age hope that everyone can cheer on themselves, like themselves, support themselves, and express themselves after they get ability. For these, they can even do anything. The Electro Man in Homelander and the Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a prime example. Their nature may not be bad at first, but people become, for desires and needs, gradually lost themselves and changed their nature. So like Peter Parker, there's only little Spider-Man in Marvel. Facing Ivan's admiration, Peter Parker smiled happily. Ivan, I'm sure you are too. Who knows? Ivan shrugged and said, self-deprecating, what if I'm a supervillain? Oh no, Peter Parker put on a bad look, that righteous side is absolutely doomed. Why? Because you will also cultivate a bunch of big villains. Quote. Evening. On the way home, Peter Parker looked at the overwhelming news of the black-clothed Superman and said with joy and disappointment. I thought the good thing I did yesterday would be in the news. As the protagonist of yesterday's news, Ivan calmly seemed like an ordinary high school student. Maybe it's somewhere, but you didn't see it. That's right. Peter Parker didn't really care whether he was in the news or not. What he mainly needs is whether he does good deeds, rather than on the news. So he was surprised again when his style changed. Ivan, did you watch the news about Superman in Black last night? My God, he shoots lasers in his eyes, his flesh resists bullets, and he can still fly. No wonder everyone calls him Superman. A lot of people online now want to be his fans. Ivan smiled. Does anyone know his real identity? That's not true. Peter Parker shook his head. But he's handsome from just his body shape. He's definitely handsome. What's there to care about? Ivan picked up a cover newspaper. Look, you two still have something in common. Where? Peter Parker wondered. They are all people who cherish normal life. You are too complimented. At this time, both Ivan's and Peter Parker's phones received a text message at the same time. The two opened it and saw that it was actually a message from the teacher. Tomorrow our class will go to Yale University to visit the laboratory. Please prepare in advance and inform your parents again. Yale University. Seeing this university, Ivan's memory flashed. Isn't that the school where Hulk has friction with the army in the Invincible Hulk plot? Won't be together. The next day, get on the school bus to Yale University. Everyone is looking forward to thinking about what instruments will be seen in the laboratory and how high-tech the laboratory is. But the last row of the bus. Ivan leaned against the window alone, watching the scenery outside the car silently. Peter Parker originally wanted to be next to him, but Ivan drove him away and let him stay with the rest of the class. At the same time, Ivan's heart is also looking forward to it. He was looking forward to the real appearance of Hulk, so he could really try his ability when he stopped the friction between Hulk and the military. Hulk's physique. Ivan looked forward to the picture of him hitting the Chitauri warship worm with a punch. And, if he does stop Hulk from fighting the military, it was definitely a win-win plan. One can test their combat effectiveness. Second, it can prevent the damage to the school and students caused by the friction between the two sides. This matter will definitely spread as the day before yesterday. Then the social popularity after the spread can enhance its own strength. It's not a win-win what this is. The bus drove slowly. Because in the United States, the right-of-way of the student bus is very high, so the journey is smooth. But more than an hour later, the bus stopped in front of Yale University. Everyone got out of the car and stretched. The 1-hour bus ride was not too tiring for them. Mainly talking in the car for an hour. Mouth is tired. After getting out of the car, the leading teacher in charge of this event organized everyone to enter the university. College students are bigger than their group. Looking at this group of high school people, many people greeted them. Among them, the beautiful big sister threw a wink when she saw Ivan's handsome face and perfect body. Peter Parker smiled a little sour and a little bitter. Ivan, walk with you, girls always look at you. I didn't force them. Ivan shrugged innocently. They are free. Peter Parker was dumbfounded. Well, it's really no one's fault. After about 10 minutes of walking, the crowd came to a building. After coming to greet people and seeing everyone, they walked down on the stage and greeted them. Welcome to the future stars of tomorrow, and then follow me to visit the biological laboratory. Let's go in. Follow the crowd in. What does the research laboratory look like that everyone is looking forward to? But only Ivan looked around like a landscape. It's a pity that Ivan didn't find the target until he entered the research room. At the moment when the last one stepped into the research room, Ivan's super hearing heard 2 anxious footsteps outside. As he stepped in, he turned to look. On the square in front of another teaching building, a man and a woman are hurriedly walking inside. Through supervision and perspective ability, Ivan can clearly see that these two are Betty and Banner. According to the plot, the reason they came here is to get experimental data. Watching the two quickly enter the building, the lead teacher asked, "What's wrong?" "It's nothing." Ivan shook his head and stepped into one last foot. Research room. The practice laboratory in charge of the guidance took them and a group of high school students to introduce the various instruments here one by one. As one of the best universities, the university's biological research laboratories are also top-notch. Therefore, the instruments here are also much more precious than other places. Definitely not as expensive as Osborn's lab. Peter Parker came over and whispered. Osborn's lab is more complex than that, and there's living organism culture and production. Ivan nodded. Gwen is there to help, isn't he? Yes. Peter Parker nodded. Her grades are very good. Dr. Connors is very optimistic about her, and hired her as a laboratory assistant. I see. That's it. After visiting for about an hour, the instruments of the whole laboratory are almost finished. Sudden, while no one else found out, Ivan's super hearing has detected movement. Throughout the campus, the sound of the vibrating tracks of armored vehicles and the treading of rubber soles of tactical shoes began to be heard. Plus a lot of people running fast. Ivan at the moment already knew. The military operation has begun. Take a look at the teacher who is finishing the tour and preparing to take everyone out of the laboratory. Ivan said aloud. Sorry, I may need to go to a WC. The teacher nodded. Go Ivan. After finding a good reason, Ivan slipped decisively. Then, but in a few minutes, Peter Parker suddenly jerked, stood up, walked to the window and looked out. Through the strengthening of vision, he actually saw a green military vehicle actually drove into the campus. Peter Parker rubbed his eyes to make sure he read it right. He immediately got up and picked up his school bag, and shouted at the teacher as he slipped away. Sorry, I might need to go too. Go. Watching Ivan and Peter Parker leave one after another, Gwen tilted his head, puzzled. What are these two doing? After a minute or two, sudden buzz. What? Shouts and car engines and tracks came from outside the building. Everyone hurried to the corridor windows to look out. Several green armored vehicles and dozens of soldiers were actually heading towards another building. Hide and go to a safe place. The teacher leading the team quickly evacuated the crowd. Gwen ran with everyone, thinking about the images of Ivan and Peter Parker leaving before and after. These two absolutely have a secret. Outside the building, Banner and Betty are chased everywhere by soldiers sent by General Ross. In the panic, Banner even swallowed the USB flash drive containing the experimental data, and he was not afraid that he would digest it after turning into Hulk. Finally, in this game of many cats and mice, Banner was still blocked by a group of soldiers on the overpass connecting the two buildings. But Banner's true strength is not a mouse. Boom, boom. With several rounds of tear gas, the glass broke and smashed next to Banner. Banner leaned against the glass and slowly shook his head. No, no. At the moment, he couldn't control Hulk at all after his transformation. And he was still on campus at this time. If he did something irreparable after the transformation, Banner himself would not forgive himself. But nothing has changed now. As the high-concentration tear gas was fired, Banner began to have difficulty breathing in the thick smoke and gradually fell to the ground. But this is not the end. Instead, it's just beginning. A figure began to appear in the shadow of the thick smoke. With each expansion, his size increased by another point. Until he stood up completely, he let out a roar. Roar. Click. The shaky glass was shattered directly. The Marines on both sides took a step back in fright. What kind of creature is this? What monster is this? Is that what we're going to catch? Hulk was born. He looked around angrily, smashed through the glass wall and jumped down. Bang. The earth trembled suddenly. The concrete floor even sunk in a piece. Seeing this, General Ross, who was far in the armored vehicle on the other side, gave an order. Action. Clap, clap, clap. Immediately, all kinds of firearms began to shoot. It also contains some biological weapon bullets such as anesthesia needles. Betty, who had already been captured by the side, saw that Hulk, who had turned into Banner, was attacked by a focus fire, and hurriedly pleaded. Father. No. Ross shook his head firmly. Hulk is mine, and no one can take him away. He was advanced in age, and he must get the results of Banner's mutation into Hulk. Not only does it make him stronger, you can also form a group of super soldiers and get an unimaginable status in this country. Roar. Shot by countless bullets, Hulk let out a roar and charged directly to the nearest armored car. On the way to run, his file-sized fist smashed two Marines away in 2 blows. The rest of the soldiers who used the armored vehicle as a cover saw Hulk rushing towards him, and immediately evacuated from the armored vehicle. And the people inside the armored vehicle wanted to jump out after seeing it. But he just stepped out with a foot. Hulk slammed him with his shoulder. Bang! With huge amounts of collision sounded. The more than 10-ton armored carrier was hit by Hulk, and it was thrown away like a water float. While rolling on the ground, countless grass and soil splashed everywhere. See here. On the roof of the building, the students who had not gone far in the distance took out their mobile phones to take pictures and videos. The more courageous even approached and wanted to take a clearer shot. Seeing this, General Ross frowned, picked up the walkie-talkie and commanded. Focus. Drive him in front of the Sonic car. Immediately. Soldiers take advantage of the unintelligent nature of Hulk's head at the moment. Even kidnapping and cheating led Hulk to the front of an ultrasonic car. But Hulk is also a pure fool. He always focused on the purpose of destroying, not going to the open space at all, just chasing the hammer and the hammer of the armored vehicle. See here. General Ross could only sigh helplessly. Bronsky. I couldn't wait. The person called smiled confidently. He twisted his neck and threw the largely useless Hulk rifle to the soldier next to him. Then he picked up a burst howitzer from the car and rushed over. A black figure runner on the grass. His speed is fast for a normal person, very fast, faster than a sprinter. Definitely, this is very slow for Ivan. A few hundred meters away, Bronsky, who was strengthened by immature genes, arrived in a while. Watching Hulk turn his back to him, Bronsky pulled the trigger on the howitzer. Boom! The howitzer blew directly on Hulk's back. But the smoke hasn't dissipated yet. The green figure turned around and roared at Bronsky, who had attacked him. Roar! Boom! What greeted him was another howitzer. But it's not over yet. Boom! 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 Bronsky fired a howitzer as he walked. Until all 6 howitzers are fired. Bronski dropped the howitzer. Hulk in the smoke put down his arms covering his face. Hulk at the moment was furious. He roared and charged straight at Bronski. Bronski smiled confidently and rushed forward. Fist fight. General Ross also carefully observed what happened to Bronski, whose genes had been strengthened. The next moment, a slender figure who thought of Hulk flew out dozens of meters like a piece of rags and smashed heavily on the ground. This is not who Bronski is. In just a few seconds, Hulk knocked him down with a punch, then slapped him hard and kicked it out like a football. General Ross looked ashen, but fortunately Bronski's task was accomplished. Because of this fight, Hulk's position appeared in the clearing and was exposed to the ultrasonic vehicle. Ross took out the walkie-talkie and ordered angrily. "Emission." "No," cried Rose's daughter, Betty. But the fact is that Ross doesn't care about his daughter's cry at all. The ultrasonic car was about to explode, huge amounts of sound waves surrounding Hulk. Boom. Under so much pressure, Hulk could hardly even roar, he could only stretch out his hands to block the part in front of him first. But this is not a long-term solution. While resisting, Hulk saw the debris left by his own destruction of the armored vehicle not far away. He moved over with difficulty, trying to destroy the ultrasonic car with those fragments. "Power up. Don't let him touch those shards," General Ross shouted angrily. With the roar of General Ross, the soldiers in the ultrasonic armored vehicle quickly turned up the power. While this power can cause irreparable damage to equipment, who cares about that right now? Unfortunately, at the moment is too late. Hulk held the ultrasonic wave with one hand, and turned over to the side of the armored car. The fist of his pan file size clenched tightly, and then threw it towards the opposite side. Boom. For a moment, the metal fragments of the file size of the car tires are cut into the armored car like a drill. The ultrasonic instrument on the armored vehicle suddenly stopped working. 2 cars were scrapped in an instant. The ultrasonic pressure on Hulk plummeted. He picked up another piece of debris and slammed into the last armored car. Bang! With the huge force of Hulk smashed down. The armored car was smashed like a piece of paper. Immediately, sparks and thick smoke erupted from the ultrasonic transmitter. So far, both armored vehicles have been scrapped. This is the most beneficial weapon against Hulk, General Ross's assistant suggested after seeing this. "General, let's retreat first, there is no firepower to deal with Hulk now." "No." Ross clenched his fists and shook his head slowly. He closed his eyes and thought for a while. After a while, the walkie-talkie was slowly placed beside his mouth and the last command was given. "Start the Black Hawk helicopter." Received. The other end of the walkie-talkie replied. With the end of the command, the roar of the engine and the fanning of the propeller were suddenly heard not far away. Da 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 da. As the sound got louder, an object gradually flew up from the ground in the distance. "It's a gunship," the sharp-eyed classmates immediately exclaimed, and immediately ran with the classmates. "Come on, there are missiles on it." The bullet howitzers before they were still within their tolerance. Because these are all controlled by man, they do not believe that the soldiers of the military will start massacres on the college students. Even if General Ross was scolded by members of the parliament, he would have no good juice to eat. But gunships are different. There are real missiles on it. From their point of view, there were at least 20 missiles hanging on both sides of the gradually flying gunship. If these missiles are used to hit Hulk, they didn't know if the Hulk would be killed. But as long as these missiles hit them a little bit, they'd burp. This is not controllable. For a moment, at least half of the hundreds of Yale students who were watching the battlefield left. Only the last few dozen classmates remained firm. It's like dying to take pictures of these. General Ross watched the helicopter take off and was about to fly over. He immediately ordered again. "All soldiers, focus Hulk, involving the arrival of the gunship, don't let him run away." Receive. Immediately, intensive fire was fired at Hulk again. The fire was so intense this time around that it seemed as if several squads of reinforcements had arrived. The dense firepower network stopped dozens of students who were just running away. They shrank behind the boulders in the square, shivering. General Ross saw it, but he didn't bother. As long as Hulk is captured and his technology is brought back, his right to speak can settle everything. Sudden, several white threads shot at the soldiers who were firing beside the boulder. and just hit all the triggers that were firing. Sorry. A red and blue figure swayed down from the roof. By the way, he slid in front of these soldiers, and at the same time, the gun was captured by this figure and wrapped around him. Wait until he falls on the boulder. Both the students and the soldiers saw who this man was. Peter Parker. Oh no, it's Spider-Man. Peter Parker looked at the figures of the students under his feet, and waved quickly, "Go home for dinner, classmates." Peter Parker said this, and the group reacted. Everyone quickly got up and ran again. Among them, several classmates took several photos of Spider-Man. After a while, wait until the students are finished. Peter Parker crouched on the boulder. Hesitation. Sorry, I was watching you fight just now, but I don't know who to help. Can you tell me who is good and who is bad? That Hulk looks like a good guy. The soldier wrapped his hands and glared at Spider-Man angrily. Peter Parker spread his hands. But you don't look like good people when you shoot all the students regardless of the safety of the students. The soldier was stunned, and quickly reported the situation to the officer in the headset. If it were before, Peter Parker must have helped the soldiers. But he didn't know until after Ivan's teaching. There is no absolute good person in the world. You can't just look at the surface, you can't just look at the skin, you can make your own decisions after seeing the truth inside. After a while, Hulk is still being attacked by concentrated fire, and he is running around everywhere. The soldier turned to Peter Parker. General Ross wants to talk to you. General. Peter Parker put his hands on the mouth of the hood, pretending to be surprised. Definitely, it doesn't matter to him whether he will be a general or not. He just wanted to figure out who he should help and who should not help. Peter Parker reached out and shot the cobweb, and the soldier's headset was instantly glued back to his ear. Good morning, General. Ross was stunned when he heard this. Just about to demonstrate. Become simple and straightforward. The soldier has already reported the situation to me. Use your silk screen to control the Hulk. After the event is completed, you will be awarded a citizen medal and a rice gold reward. No. Peter Parker refused directly. He was sitting on the boulder swinging his legs. I just want to know what you are doing and what the Hulk is doing. As soon as Ross heard it, he knew that Spider-Man was righteous. His eyes shone brightly, and he made it up directly. The Hulk stole the national biogenetic potion, and I'm arresting him. What about the evidence? Peter Parker was unmoved. And I remember that the United Nations agreement does not allow the study of technology that alters biological genes, so you are the bad guy. In fact, Peter Parker didn't want to help either side in the first place. After all, both sides are too outrageous. On one side is the genetically mutant Hulk who is nearly 3 meters tall and has infinite strength. One side is the army soldiers who directly broke into the campus and started the fire attack regardless of the safety of the students. The former does not know why, does not know whether he has done bad things before, and does not see that he is bad now. Otherwise, don't say it. After chatting with Ross, Peter Parker confirmed that neither of them would help. So, no matter what irritated Ross said, Peter Parker turned his head to look at the flying helicopter, and other students hiding in the corner, speaking directly into the headset. Sorry General, I seem to be busy here. With that, Peter Parker threw the headset back next to the soldier. Then stand up from the boulder and shoot the cobweb away. Under so much firepower, he also needs to be careful to send away the trapped students one by one. Whether it is on the roof or the corner, whether in the classroom or hiding. Peter Parker is trying to find and send fire range. Otherwise, if any bullet ricocheted, or when the firepower hit, it would be affected to their physical mortals. Even if Peter Parker gets shot, he has to kneel. After all, his body can't stop bullets. With Peter Parker quickly sending students away. But gunships have already arrived at the scene. Looking at the huge gunship outside the square, Peter Parker slapped his forehead. Oh no, there are too many students in the building, and he hasn't finished delivering them yet. If the helicopter's missiles were fired on the building during the chaos, it would be over. General Ross was in the armored vehicle, picked up the walkie-talkie and said, "Use the heavy machine gun first." The voice fell. The machine gun under the gunship automatically aimed at Hulk. Bang bang bang. The large caliber bullet blew directly on Hulk. Wow, Hulk roared, but could only dodge. The bullet from the rifle is okay, although it hurts, it can hold. But the bullets of this heavy weapon, Hulk, can't handle it now. When the bullet hit him, Hulk's instinct told him that he couldn't resist and he had to leave quickly. But Hulk glanced at the armored vehicle behind the soldier in the distance where Betty was strapped into it. That's where General Ross at the moment is. Suddenly, the anger in Hulk's eyes grew bigger and bigger, and the green light in his eyes became more and more fierce. He gritted his teeth, suddenly madly rushed towards the helicopter. General Ross immediately understood when he saw this. Hulk wanted to hit Wonglong directly, so he rushed towards him. There was also a ruthless look on Ross's face. He picked up the walkie-talkie again. Launch the missile. Yes, the helicopter pilot was helpless but could only follow orders. He flipped a transparent covered button open, ready to aim at Hulk and press it. But unexpectedly, after Hulk went down from his body, he didn't go straight to the main force. Instead, he jumped up violently and attacked directly towards the abdomen of the helicopter. Impossible. The gunship pilot was taken aback. He forgot that although the height of more than 10 meters is beyond the reach of human beings, for Hulk, it can be reached. The pilot hurriedly stretched the helicopter. The helicopter quickly climbed upwards. But Hulk's figure was getting closer. In panic, the pilot quickly wanted to take his other hand from the missile launcher and pull up the helicopter. But because of his panic, the hand he left accidentally touched the missile launch button. Look at where the monitor is aiming. The driver was terrified. It was only then that he remembered that the cover of the missile had been opened by himself. The missile is aimed at the position of the main building because it is directly pulled up. Puff! The missile's tail flame ignited. In the blink of an eye, the missile flew towards the school building where Peter Parker was. Hulk's green eyes reflected the figure of the missile leaving. Subconsciously, he also seemed to have thought that the missile couldn't blow up there. Hulk reached out, trying to stop the missile, but it was too late. Just a second or two. The missile had already flown out more than 10 meters away. No. Peter Parker saw this in the building. He pulled his classmates around to protect him, and shot Cobweb in sequence to pull the iron cabinet or something over to resist. General Ross scolded angrily when he saw this. If the missile razed the building to the ground, he'd be finished. Unless it is Hulk's research results he fully grasps. Otherwise, send armed helicopters to bomb the Yale University teaching building. He must go to court-martial and then squat to death in prison. The eyes of the students who could not escape in the building also showed despair. The power of modern missiles can be imagined. If it hits the wall, the students who are far away may still survive. But if shot through the window, it will explode inside the building. The creature on which layer it was blown up would have to die. If the building collapsed, the casualties would be even more severe. In just a few seconds, after Peter Parker pulled over the defensive iron cabinet and other things, he was ready to wait quietly until the explosion came. At the moment, many images appeared in his mind. Ben Uncle, Aunt May. Ivan who pulled himself up at the beginning of school. The magic engine opened the picture of 8 spears. Ivan taught himself, the picture of Eugene. That night, a picture of helping people. Let's just ask that this period of time was the most interesting period in Peter Parker's life. But is it over yet? For some reason, the image of Superman in black came to his mind again. If only he was there. Ivan, it should be safe too. Sigh. As the missile's plume fades, the fuel's propulsion speed makes the missile go faster and faster. The launch position of the helicopter and the teaching building are only 100 meters away. It's such a short distance. The missile takes only a few seconds from launch to hit. It's over. The helicopter pilot and Ross, who was in the distance, were desperate. The missile is halfway through at the moment. One more second at most. Everyone present could hear a deafening explosion. Really desperate. But at this juncture, a red light shot from a distance, as if cutting the sky in half. Bang. The sudden light flashed across the missile in an instant. The missile also happened to explode at the safest location during its flight. The location of the explosion was in the middle of the teaching building in the open space. Wow! Deafening explosions and shock waves shattered an entire wall of the teaching building. In an instant, hundreds of pieces of glass shattered and fell. A large cloud of flames, thick smoke, and gray fog enveloped the square, which could not be dissipated for a long time. What? Ross and the helicopter pilot were dumbfounded. A red light flashed across. Missile exploded. After the roaring missile exploded, Peter Parker in the teaching building also slowly stood up. Quote. He just lowered his head to tighten the cobweb defense and hold on to a few students. I didn't even look at what was going on outside. He only felt that there was a flash of red light, and then the explosion sounded. Could it be? Peter Parker immediately stood up and looked outside. Superman. Yes. Peter Parker came to the window with all the shattered glass and looked out. A figure also happened to fall slowly not far away, hanging in the air. Ivan was still thinking about the best shot. So he's still watching. After seeing Peter Parker going to save ordinary people, Ivan also thought that he didn't have to do much, as long as he prevented Hulk rage in the end. But when seeing helicopters firing missiles, that's really coming. Definitely, Ivan also knows that this is the time to appear and harvest the most popular. Suspended in the air, Ivan was wearing a black super battle suit, with a white cloak floating slowly behind him. The delicate and bulging muscles show what is called perfect strength. The red light that just dissipated in the eyes under the mask expressed who fired the laser just now. Ivan looked at the gunship and said lightly, "You shouldn't use this weapon in school." After he finished speaking, his eyes glowed red. "Go down." Next moment, heat vision shot out in an instant. In the blink of an eye, it shoots at the base of the rotating blades of the helicopter. The scorching high temperature directly melted the blades of the gunship. The driver looked at the power that was slowly disappearing and could only take a forced landing. Students fleeing in the distance turned around when they heard the explosion and saw the unforgettable sight. The smoke is still there. The school building is still there. Superman is suspended in the air, between the gunship and the teaching building. And the missile of the gunship is one less. Coupled with the thick smoke behind the Superman, no one could tell that the gunship did it. And Superman is protecting the school. "Take a picture. Take a picture," one student shouted excitedly. The rest of the students immediately took out their mobile phones and took pictures. "I just recorded it," one of the students shouted excitedly. He had a VCR in his hand, and this was the group of people Peter Parker had just rescued. When he was leaving, he also took a photo of Peter Parker. "Look at the photos and videos for evidence." A student immediately shouted, "Hurry up and post it online. You may be searched if you go out." "Yes, yes," everyone suddenly reacted. "Immediately post the photos and videos you just took to various online sites. Just a minute or two." All social software such as YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, etc. were sent by them. Although some are clear, some are not clear, but all the scenes are clearly expressed. And just a little bit of sorting and analysis. You can also see many details. It can even be synthesized into a live broadcast. After uploading all information and evidence, the students started hesitation again. They got together and discussed it. "Still taking risks, are you still here to shoot?" The result was not waiting for everyone to answer. One of the classmates insisted, "Must stay here." He looked around the classmates. "This is a black-clothed Superman. As long as we don't get close to the battlefield and only shoot on the edge, he can definitely protect us." When it comes to Superman, everyone's information is indeed abundant. They looked at each other. They nodded together and said in unison, "Action." On the battlefield, the corners of Ivan's mouth under his visor smiled slightly. The group of students was only a few hundred meters away, and he definitely caught all their discussions in his eyes and ears. Their behavior, Ivan can only say, is very good. It's the icing on the cake. Back to God. After Ivan looked at the helicopter that had already landed, his eyes looked into the armored vehicle surrounded by soldiers. As predicted, as the armored car opened, General Ross stepped out. He held a loudspeaker and spoke to Ivan in an impassioned tone. "Mr. Superman, please help the army to subdue the Hulk who developed mutant genes privately. The mayor of New York and I will definitely award you a medal in person, and maybe Mr. President will come in person. In the face of this old man who is more right than anything else." Ivan folded his arms and raised his chin slightly to signal Bronsky, who was still in rags on the stretcher in the distance. "How do you want to quibble? That means, while slandering that people developed it privately. On the other hand, my own people also use this stuff. Isn't this standing again and again? This is." Ross wants to say something. "Okay." Ivan waved his hand, and lightly rejected his words. "I don't have time to talk nonsense with you." "Who is Ross?" Yes, he is a general, or a general with real power in the United States. But what's the use of it? Will it increase Ivan's strength? Won't. Will it help Ivan? Neither will it. What's the use in the future? Not even more. So, coupled with Rose's hypocrisy at the moment, Ivan didn't want to talk to him at all. Compared to Hulk, whose souls are resting and recovering at the moment. Other Ivans can also sell him magic engines. But selling it to Ross is of no use at all. After ignoring Ross directly, Ivan looked down, where Hulk was. Fly down slowly. Ivan came to the ground 2 meters in front of Hulk and fell. Looking at Hulk kneeling on one leg, panting. Ivan is also very curious. At the moment Banner has just mutated, and he hasn't mastered Hulk's ability yet, but that doesn't mean Hulk is weak. Its ceiling is still very high. Are you out of breath? Ivan asked, looking into Hulk's eyes. Hey, Hulk sighed, glaring at Ross behind Ivan. Ivan knew what Hulk meant without even looking back. Betty will be safe there, but her freedom will be restricted, and you will be in danger if you take her away. Boom. Hulk thumped the ground angrily. His performance means that he actually listened to Ivan's explanation seriously. Ivan smiled. There is still a chance, isn't it, as long as you can freely control Hulk's appearance or not, Ross can't control you. Hulk lowered his head and thought for a moment. But he still raised his head sharply and looked at Ross fiercely. Ivan saw that he didn't move, and knew that Hulk at the moment had heard him. To know, at the moment talking to Hulk is not about wisdom. Rather, look at reason and logic. After Banner becomes Hulk, his sanity will decrease a lot. At the moment, if you want to communicate, then impressions, previous good feelings, etc. are very useful. But at the moment Hulk was willing to listen to Ivan. A large part of the reason is that Hulk can feel that Ivan is not hostile to himself, and he has helped the missile air blow before. Definitely, this is just the result of Hulk's calm down. If he's raged, didn't you see a sudden punch to Thor in the Avengers Alliance? Sometimes he does not distinguish between friend and foe. Not to mention, Ivan at the moment isn't even an ally. It can only be regarded as a person who has a good feeling in the subconscious. In this way, with Hulk gasping slightly, his anger became smaller and smaller, and his body gradually recovered. General Ross behind Ivan sees here. There was a twinkle in his eyes. He quickly picked up the walkie-talkie and said, "Quickly fire the sedative gun." Fire. Da 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 da. Immediately, dense bullets shot from behind Ivan. Several bullets even landed on his cape due to the overlap between him and Hulk. Roar. Hulk, who hasn't gotten smaller, was hit by a bullet and was in severe pain. He roared angrily, and his size immediately changed back. Even bigger and more feminine than in the beginning. The green light in his eyes also means that at the moment his anger is close to breaking the chart. Definitely, more than one was angry. And Ivan with Peter Parker leaning against the window. Hey, Peter Parker shouted angrily, you idiots. XXXX. It wasn't just Peter Parker who was pissed. There are also students who stayed around to take pictures of Ivan. They don't have the strength to rush up. But they can take pictures and videos. Take a picture of them shooting together with Superman, who is pacifying the Hulk with his torches. Video of Ross being mean and arrogant and thinking only of himself. In the battlefield, hit in the back by a bullet behind him. Ivan was silent for a while, then slowly turned around. After being hit by the bullet, the body that remained motionless in the unusually calm state made people shudder. Next moment, Ivan stepped forward, and the direction he was heading was exactly where Ross was. He just took 2 steps. Hulk roared and rushed past Ivan. He went straight to all the armored vehicles and the soldiers near them. All he knew was that these people were attacking him. And the person Ivan was looking for was Ross. As a result, a world-famous painting was born. On the battlefield of the hail of bullets, Ivan is like a graceful wandering traveler, walking in a fire-filled garden. He walked so smoothly, so quietly. Around him, soldiers were firing, Hulk was tearing down homes, students were applauding, Parker was applauding, and Ross was frightening. Stare at the approaching Superman. General Ross picked up the walkie-talkie and shouted. Who attacked Superman? Stop him. Stop him. Useless general. The commander in the headset gave a wry smile. Hot weapons can't deal with Superman. And it was you who ordered the fire. Ross cursed loudly, scolding while drilling into the armored vehicle. I don't care about this, you can fire to stop him. The commander looked at the approaching Superman and the generals who were ready to abandon them and escape. With a wry smile, he put down his gun and other weapons in front of Ivan. But Ivan ignored him at all. He just walked slowly past his eyes. Seeing the black cloak disappear from his eyes, the commander breathed a sigh of relief and praised Superman in his heart. After Ross got into the armored vehicle, after closing the metal back door, he immediately shouted, "Leave here and go to the military base." When the driver heard it, he immediately started. But the next moment, a red light flickered behind them. Immediately, the 20mm thick metal back door was shot straight through and melted. Ivan controlled it very well, it just burned through the back and didn't see through. Then he put his left hand into the uncooled metal solution. Ignoring the high temperature of several hundred degrees, I directly opened the back door. Then his right hand went in again and lifted Ross out like a chicken. The previously domineering and fierce Ross. After being carried out by Ivan, he looks like an old dog. Ross struggled hard at first, and then stopped resisting after realizing that he was shaking the tree with his own strength. Ivan carried the back collar of his uniform. Let Ross look directly at him. "You think you're smart?" Ivan smiled contemptuously. "Since you feel that you have the status of a general, you are unscrupulous, then feel what is called absolute power." Bang! In a blink, Ivan took Ross straight into the sky. The surrounding green grass instantly crawls to the ground as if being hit by a tornado. The other side, Hulk is wreaking havoc in anger. Armored vehicles, transport vehicles, ultrasonic vehicles and more. All military vehicles that appeared on the scene were ravaged by Hulk. The soldiers were almost dumbfounded when they saw Hulk rampaging like no one else. Especially seeing the general being taken by Superman. From the first evacuation, more and more people chose to retreat. A better way to say it is to retreat. Say it hard. Seeing how they were retreating, they ran without looking back. That is to escape. The crowd was seen fleeing. A green light flashed in Hulk's eyes. He looked around and didn't see Betty trapped inside the armored car. "Roar!" Hulk growled. He ran towards the fleeing soldiers and chased after them. That's it. At this time, Ivan has returned. Hulk looked up. In Ivan's hand, he was holding a general who had completely fainted, with snot and saliva all over his face. Ivan fell slowly, throwing the person in his hand aside like a trash. He just took Ross to experience what fear is. Physically experience sonic flight. Experience the cold at an altitude of 10,000 meters. Free fall to experience incontinence. 1 to 2, even if he was the most powerful group of soldiers in his early years, he couldn't stand it and passed out. Definitely, in fact, he passed out several times in the middle. But they were all woken up by Ivan fans and continued to enjoy. I don't know if he is an old man now, if he can recover when he goes back. Back to the scene. Ivan looked at Hulk with angry eyes. "Betty is in that car, you can take her away." Roar. Hulk roared inexplicably, but Ivan got it. Hulk's heart was still filled with the hatred of the soldiers who just attacked him. At the moment, he couldn't understand what was important to him. "That's fine." Clenching his fists, Ivan suddenly smiled and said, "It seems that I can just try ability." Roar. Hulk glared at him and rushed up with his fists thrown. Ivan clenched his fists. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Quickly stepped forward, Ivan also slammed a punch. Boom. Obviously it was a big and a small fist bump. But in fact they are evenly matched. No. Hulk took a half step back. The strong wind between the two punches blew the grass down. Immediately after closing his fist, Ivan continued to slam the second punch. Hulk's face froze, and he continued to punch. Boom. Still the same as last time. Ivan's strength did not diminish in the slightest, on the contrary, the more he fought, the more fierce he became. Hulk's body jerked back. Ivan got up quickly in the air, and then a flight accelerated to continue to smash Hulk with more force. Roar. Hulk growled angrily, but the next moment. Boom. Scoff. The two fists clashed, and Hulk's body actually slid backward. Ivan floated in the air, letting out a sigh of relief. Cool. Since having power, it was the first time Ivan bombarded the opponent with all his strength. Words can't describe the feeling of wielding this power exhausted. With Hulk taking a few steps back, Hulk was stunned for a moment. He looked at his fist, as if he didn't understand how Ivan's fist so small for him was so powerful. It's like saying, I'm out of strength. Hulk shook his head and shouted at Ivan again. Roar, come. Watching Hulk come back, Ivan was happy and rushed up. This time it wasn't just a punch. Ivan started to shoot directly. It means to fight until one party can't accept it. Bang, bang, bang. My God, Peter Parker in the teaching building was going to be dumbfounded. From such a distance, he could see the storm squeezed out when the two fists collided. This shows how powerful that fist is. But now they have almost every punch this big. The sound of the collision between the fists was like the constant launch of missiles. My lord, the onlookers were also dumbfounded. It was the first time they had seen that the power of living things could be so great. Anyone knows, any punch here that hits you can go straight to God. Thinking of this, some humorous people joked while being shocked. This punch hits me, and I scream at most. It hurts at most. No, it shouldn't hurt at all. Don't blow it, I'll be more careful in my next life. Although they are talking, but the group's phones and cameras never stopped. Once you take a photo, upload one online. As long as you record a video, upload a video to the internet. That's it. Suddenly someone shouted, look, that big guy was beaten up. Yes, after a frantic bang for a while, Hulk suddenly couldn't help but take a step back. Ivan saw the opportunity, flew back a distance, and then charged down and smashed it down. Then there was the picture of the Hulk flying straight out. Carefree. The last punch knocked Hulk into the air, and Ivan's heart was very happy. Definitely, it's not as scary as flying. It's just that Hulk jumped up. After a few laps on the ground before getting back up, Hulk looked at Ivan, furious. Ivan's fists are all against him. Didn't hit Hulk all over like Thanos did. So Hulk is getting more and more angry. Tisk tisk. Ivan smiled, floating in the air. Look at the messy field of chaos around. Ivan felt the time was almost up. It's all done. The long-awaited fight was also fought. You can break up. Ivan raised his chin at Hulk and gestured to the armored car over there. She's in that car, take her away. Roar. As a result, Ivan roared in response. It seemed that Hulk's anger couldn't go down a bit. In a blink of an eye, Hulk clenched his fists again and charged up. But Ivan has experimented enough. No need to waste any more time. Therefore, the next step is the part that is not suitable for children. Ivan raised his head slightly, a trace of ferocity flashed in his eyes. Immediately, a fiery red light appeared in his eyes. Next moment, two red rays of light instantly shot on Hulk. Roar! Hulk yelled in pain, immediately raised his arm to resist the red light. Definitely, Ivan didn't use all his strength. Otherwise Hulk wouldn't just be screaming in pain. At least melt a blood hole for him. After a while, Ivan closed his eyes and looked back at Hulk with a smile on his face. This time Hulk is a lot more honest. He stopped yelling at Ivan. But when he looked at Ivan, he was still cowardly and fierce. Like what? Like those lion and tiger cubs who were afraid and roared at you when they were young. Ivan smiles. Looks like it's not strong enough. Next moment, two crimson rays shot Hulk's toes again. Ow! Hulk jumped up in pain and fell to the ground, clutching his toes. He looked at Ivan as he hurt. There was a bit of anger in his eyes. Oh, still almost. Next moment, two more crimson rays shot on Hulk's other foot. This ray of light Ivan added a little more strength. That's letting Hulk know. The previous one was not yet full. Ow! Hulk let out a scream that didn't know if it was pain or roar. But definitely not the same as roaring. A roar is a deep sound from the lungs. The call came from the throat. Looking at Hulk's aggrieved appearance, at the moments Ivan wanted to laugh. Such a big body shrunk and covered his toes. You say it's not pitiful, you say it's not pitiful. Ivan smiled and flew to Hulk. Hulk felt Ivan approaching. That instinctive anger was ready to rise again. But as soon as he looked up, he lost his breath when he saw the fiery eyes on Ivan's mask. This time, Hulk was finally convinced. The lasers in those eyes did a lot of damage to Hulk. Say it again. This is still the result of Ivan letting him. If Ivan's unscrupulous flight, coupled with the heat sight to sweep the Hulk. Then Hulk probably played GG. He couldn't touch Ivan at all. Hulk was still dissatisfied with the previous physical attack. But he really couldn't bear the attack power of this heat sight. Look at the honest Hulk. Ivan controlled the sound so that only Hulk could hear it. Betty will not be in danger whether you take her or not. Now the information is on you, go and solve the problem on yourself and come back. Say it. Ivan said another address for Hulk to remember. But apparently now calm Hulk can understand. But he can't remember the address. Ivan's eyes widened, and the red light appeared again. Then repeat the address several times. Can't remember. It forces you to remember. Just remember to almost hide. When the time comes, you will naturally find him. You don't push yourself. How do you know how much potential you have? Under the menace of Ivan's red eyes, Hulk barely remembered the location. Ivan nodded. Hanging in the air patted Hulk on the shoulder. Go. Hulk stood up and finally looked in Betty's direction. Then he nodded at Ivan. He ran towards the address given by Ivan. So far, the situation at the scene is over. Ivan turned around in the air and changed the scene. It was a mess. That's why superhero fights and mortals suffer. Ivan sighed inwardly. Then it disappeared in an instant and went straight to the sky. 10 minutes later, outside Yale University's campus. Ivan changed into the casual clothes in the system and waited for his classmates at the door. Peter Parker's bag was left at the school, and he had to change his clothes at the school before coming out. At the moment, countless police cars have surrounded the entire school. Ivan was also questioned by several police officers for a while. Definitely, he explained it very simply. Hide, do not know. Oh, it is good, gone. After a while, Peter Parker came out of the school in tattered clothes. The classmates at Midtown Science High School waved their hands when they saw him. Peter Parker, here, but as soon as Peter Parker came out, he was taken away by the police and questioned first. That's it, all the way from morning to late night. Everyone's cross-examination has only ended one by one, and this does not include the possibility of being testified again in the future. Ride the school bus home. Some people are decadent, some are excited, some are confused. Hey, Mom, I'm back, it's okay. Have you seen Superman? I heard that Superman is coming, why didn't I see it? We almost died, didn't you hear the gunshots, and the sound of missiles exploding? Then what happened? Why did Superman come, and why? Look at YouTube and Twitter. It's full of photos and videos. Look, be careful, it's been deleted. This way. Peter Parker kept looking out the window, a little melancholy. Maybe in the incident just now, for the first time, Parker felt that he couldn't help because his ability was not enough. Likewise, Ivan leaned against the window doing nothing. Next, it's time to go back and find Dr. Banner, who changed back from Hulk. Then sell him 3 magic engines mercilessly. The school bus drove slowly to the school. At the moment, many parents of classmates have already arrived at the school gate to wait for their children. Peter Parker's uncle and Aunt May are also here, watching everyone hug each other. Ivan's eyes moved slightly and he left first. After Peter Parker and Uncle Aunt May hugged, he just turned around and wanted to say something to Ivan. But looking around, Ivan was gone. After leaving the crowd, with a sudden melancholy mood, Ivan looked up at the sky and flew out instantly. New York is not that big, especially with the location in Queens. After about a minute or two, Ivan flew into a private villa by the sea that had just been bought. The planning area of this villa is not small, the lawn has just been laid, and the main building of the villa has just been renovated. I glanced at the big footprints coming up from the sea. This large footprint climbed from the beach to the reef and finally broke the lawn and entered the front of the house. Ivan flew straight to where Banner was and stopped. At the moment Banner sat on the reef and looked towards the sea, and he was gradually fascinated with a USB flash drive in his hand. Banner was almost taken aback by Ivan's sudden arrival. But he was relieved when he saw the person coming. Tightening the blanket on his body, Banner looked back at the villa and said embarrassedly, sorry for trampling your lawn. After I changed back, I didn't have any clothes, so I went in and got a blanket. It's okay, Ivan said indifferently. Yes, he bought this villa. And where did this money come from? Ahem, definitely got it from Tony before. Ivan landed slowly in the air. In the process, the black super battle suit on his body disappeared instantly, and the system space was used to become a daily clothes. Banner was stunned when he turned around. He didn't expect that the black-clothed Superman himself was such a young man. also did not expect. Ivan, who had previously covered up the identity of Superman, was directly exposed to himself here. Look into Banner's eyes. Ivan knew what he was thinking. With a wave of his hand, Ivan indifferently walked towards the open-air rest area with Banner. Banner is very clear about who he is. Scientist, calm and honest. That's why Ivan is willing to give Banner his address and call him here. With Banner's character, he would never say anything. But little Spider-Man, he didn't say. After all, that guy has a big mouth. Just in case. No, it will definitely leak out. Come and sit in the outdoor seating area. As soon as Ivan waved his hand on the table, the drinks in the system space were automatically placed on the table. When Banner looked at it, he shocked Ivan Wiley, and his stomach made an embarrassing growl. Banner smiled awkwardly. Immediately, Ivan waved again, and there were many burgers and other fast food on the table. Ivan smiled, picked up a bottle of water, unscrewed it and said, "Eat it." "Thank you very much." Seeing Ivan so peaceful, Banner thanked him and devoured it immediately. After half an hour, eat and drink well. Watch Ivan watching the stars in the sky. Dr. Banner thought about it before asking. The more I get angry, the more I can't control Hulk, but I just want to live a normal life. In the end, Banner is a lot like Ivan and Peter Parker. Ability is only a part of a person, not the whole. If you have ability, but you can't live without life. So Banner suffers for this. You are the same as us. Ivan leaned back in the chair and put his hands under his head, so you have to learn to use ability. Banner wondered. My name is Ivan, and I'm in the same class as the Spider-Man Peter Parker you saw today. Ivan laughed when he said this. But he doesn't know my ability. My God, Banner suddenly realized, at the same time shocked that Ivan was so young. I also admire that Ivan has mastered such a strong ability at this age and has such a mentality. Thought here, and the Superman news he saw before returning to New York. Immediately, Banner's trust and affection for Ivan increased greatly. Then, he asked impatiently. Then how do I control Hulk? You're not in the same situation as we are. Ivan shook his head. Then motioned Banner to explain himself. Tell me how you feel about Hulk. Banner fell into thought. After a while, he spoke slowly. When I'm angry, it's like inhaling anesthesia before surgery. You can feel consciousness, but you can't do anything. But when Hulk came out, my memory was also disordered, and Hulk seemed to rely on my instinct to act. So you actually count as two consciousnesses and one individual. Ivan nodded and said sharply. Ivan continued speaking slowly. My ability, the ability I can control, was originally there. Peter Parker's ability, although acquired, has been tried and used by him constantly. Your ability can be referred to as transformation and mutation, but it comes from you originally. So in subconscious awareness, you have to know that Hulk was born because of you, and without you there would be no Hulk. After speaking, Ivan looked at Banner's confused eyes and solemnly added. You are Hulk. Hulk is you too. Banner equals Hulk. Hulk equals Banner. In a few short sentences, Banner fell back into thinking about Hulk again. It never occurred to him that Hulk was originally understood this way. It turned out that he always thought that Hulk was another creature after his transformation. That is, Hulk is not himself at all. But after Ivan taught him so, he found out. I was wrong. I have always been wrong. Without him, Hulk would never have been born. And since transforming into Hulk, most of it will be based on his subconscious and instinct. What Ivan said is right. Just a few words from Ivan brought Banner into a new world. It turned out that he had always understood it wrong. It turned out that he had always been against himself. At this moment, Banner realized too much, even more important than the previous penance. What should I? Hulk. Banner asked a question he didn't even know what to say. Except, Ivan smiled slightly, or reacquainted. Yes, except, or rather, reacquaint myself with myself. Banner nodded earnestly. Apparently, he is very convinced of Ivan's theory just now. Seeing Banner asking for help, Ivan knew what was going to happen next. Nodding, Ivan said simply. If it's just verbal guidance, I can only say Banner, you still need to exercise the strength of your mind and will. Mind and will. Banner didn't understand. Seeing Banner's incomprehensible expression, Ivan gave a simple explanation. You can understand it as subconscious and instinct, and the will is easy to understand, which is your firm heart and mind. Instinct will guide you when you become Hulk. And your subconscious will also affect your transformed Hulk. So you need to accept Hulk from the bottom of your heart and think that Hulk is also yourself. This is not a joke, at least it takes a lot of training and training. After listening carefully, Banner nodded solemnly. What Ivan just said was too important to him. With the understanding and training direction of this new world, he can at least control Hulk not to come out or riot. If in the chaos, the Hulk he turned into killed a lot of people, he would never be able to forgive himself when he woke up. The mentality of Banner at the moment is strictly speaking of ordinary people. After Hawkeye was controlled to kill so many agents, it took a long time to recover. Then, Banner suddenly remembered something. He immediately raised his head and said what Ivan had just said. After rereading it, there was a look of surprise on his face. Verbal guidance. In other words, is there anything Ivan can do to help him? Banner asked impatiently. Ivan, please help. Speaking of which, Banner forcibly stopped himself. He suddenly remembered why others would help him in vain. But he looked at the blankets he was wearing, all of them belonged to others. And I am penniless now. The identity of a scientist is also useless because of Hulk. He thought about it and thought, there was really no reward for Ivan. This time Banner fell into embarrassment and difficulty again hesitation. Seeing this, Ivan shook his head helplessly. What Banner cared about, he didn't care at all. Does he like the magic engine deals? The magical engine he was interested in originally? Or the higher level magic engine he got after selling it? And those trading conditions that came with it just depended on what Ivan needed and what he wanted at the time. Peter Parker has no money, so 1 meter. Tony is rich, and he also wants to live in a different environment, not to kill for nothing. So in the end, the first important thing is to sell the magic engine, not the side deals. The second most important thing is friendship. Wait until their protagonist value is restored, and trade multiple times. The third most important thing is the ability improvement, which needs no explanation. And those things that Banner is tangled up in. Ivan doesn't need it at all now. But it can't be at all. Ivan took a sip of wine and waved it gently on the table. Suddenly, 3 dazzling blue magic engines appeared on the table. Banner, who was thinking hard about his worth, was suddenly attracted by them. As a scientist, he really didn't understand what was in it. Banner took a closer look. He couldn't understand the blue energy flowing in it. Ivan smiled at the curious Banner. As for whether I can help you, it actually depends on you. The answer you need may be in these 3 magic engines. Turn it on and you can get any random reward. Pay attention, anything is possible, and it may also reward you based on the environment you are in right now. Say it. Ivan still raised 3 fingers and said simply. And my trades are easy. 3 conditions that will be within your ability in the future. These 3 conditions are neither too big nor too small. It all depends on what Ivan wants Banner to do then. Likewise, Banner knew what it meant. Even though the 3 conditions were simple, Banner thought about it. Strictly speaking, this is the first time Banner and Ivan have met. But from the point of view of impression and first meeting, Banner thought he had a good impression of Ivan. Either from the news, still in the network, or see it with your own eyes. Banner at the moment both thought that Ivan would not make any unreasonable conditions or allow himself to do bad things in the future. Moreover, it was originally Ivan's Superman identity that helped first. If there is no Ivan in the daytime to shoot the missiles, then at least a few students will be killed in that bombing. And Banner himself is definitely one of the indirect murderers. Thought here, Banner closed his eyes, nodded firmly, and opened it again to look at Ivan. I trust you, Ivan, you have no reason to hurt me. Look at the Banner that believes in yourself so much. A smile appeared on the corner of Ivan's mouth, and he was in a very good mood. The feeling of being so trusted by one of the Marvel protagonists is, to be honest, a very good experience. Ivan leaned back in his chair and gestured to the magical engines on the table. Don't be too happy, your hope is in them. Follow Ivan's gaze. Banner also looked at the 3 magic engines again. Look at the exquisite patterns on it and the mysterious ability flowing in it. Banner stretched out his hand and solemnly slowly picked up one of the magic engines to observe carefully. At the moment, Banner knew that none of this could be explained by science. Including himself, from the current technological point of view, it is only a cognitive explanation. But in fact, he is the only Hulk in the universe at present. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.